A very good morning to one and all present in this webinar today. I, Fatima Kadri, along with my co-host for today, Rajeshwari Pohan, on behalf of Bharati Vidyapeeth's Institute of Management Studies and Research, National Institute of Personnel Management Raigad Chapter, Konkan Gyanpeeth Oran College of Commerce and Arts, in association with Human Capital Club, with immense pleasure, like to take the proud privilege to welcome Honorable Dr. Vilas Rao Kadam, Chief Patron and Regional Director of Bharati Vidyapeeth Educational Complex, Navi Mumbai. Dr. Anjali Kalse, Organizing Secretary of the workshop and Director of Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Management Studies and Research, Navi Mumbai. Professor Kishore Sharma, Organizing Secretary and Principal, Konkan Gyanpeeth Uran College of Commerce and Arts. Mr. Avinash Somvanshi, Organizing Secretary and Chairman of National Institute of Personnel Management, Raigad Chapter. Speaker of the day, Mr. Neil Ramesh, respected faculty members and all the participant delegates for today's webinar, which is the second day of this workshop on competency mapping need of the hour. Now, I would like to request our respected director, Dr. Anjali Kalse, to welcome our speaker and the audience for today. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. Very good morning and very warm welcome to you all, dignitaries, Neil sir, and other respected guests, faculty members, and my dear students. Warm welcome for this competency mapping workshop. And this workshop, I can say that yesterday was a fantastic day, and I'm very sure today will be also a very fantastic day with Neil sir sharing his experience with the assessment center. Now, just to brief, yesterday, very practical exposure Sanjeev sir has given us with respect to mapping, because there is a lot of confusion in between. Some of the participants, I think, asked about the job description, inventory skills, and the inventory metrics and the competency mapping metrics. So, there are certain fine lines which definitely those who have handled that area over a period of time, and he has also came up with the detailed analysis. What are the do's and don'ts of the competency mapping yesterday? So yesterday it was a very fruitful day, and I hope there is a lot of takeaways yesterday, and all such doubts, whether it is a competency metric or whether it is the skills, it is cleared by Dr. Sajeev sir. And today, of course, it's a second day wherein a very important part of the without that this workshop will not be completed. So this is the assessment center part, and this assessment center, I think there are a lot of exercises. You will enjoy these exercises, how to assess, then how to, what kind of exercises are taken, then how each competency is assessed, and so many other questions which comes in our mind. And definitely Dr. Neil sir will focus on those things, and will share his vast experience with respect to assessment center, and there will be a lot of takeaways with respect to the workshop. So I think this second day also will be fantastic, and I not only hope, but I assure all the participants it will be a very fulfilling day, and a lot of takeaways you will have. Over to Neil Ramesh sir. Once again, warm welcome for this fantastic workshop organized by Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Management Studies Research, National Institute of Personal Management Raigad Chapter, and Konkan Gyanpeeth Uran College of Commerce and Arts. So thank you very much once again. Warm welcome, and over to the organizing team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your earnest welcome address. Now, I would like to take the honor to introduce our speaker for the day, Mr. Neil Ramesh. Neil Ramesh, sir, has more than 25 years of industry and corporate experience. His experience spans from manufacturing, production, planning, supply chain, and learning and development in middle and senior management positions. He has worked with companies like VIP Industries Limited, Gabriel India, Hero Honda Motors, Kinetic Engineering, and Technova Imaging System, Mumbai. He is a postgraduate in science chemistry, diploma in business management from ITM, MS in psychotherapy and counseling, diploma in quality system and management, certified assessor for assessment center. Mr. Neil is a L&D consultant, learning facilitator, and mentor. He is certified Six Sigma Black Belt, Art of Enneagram, and certified TIFF provider. He is trained assessor for assessment and development centers involved in people development and talent management. Mr. Neil Ramesh has conducted assessment centers in his earlier organizations. He has been assessor and part of team executing for more than 8 years. The assignments involved competency mapping, developing competency matrix for various functional leadership or position roles, assessing employees' competencies on prescribed tool matrix, giving feedback, consolidation of observation, interpretation and preparation of reports, and evolving individual development plans. The role includes design and development of assessment tools, assessing employees on predefined competencies, feedback, and developing individual development plans. He has worked with organizations and clients, namely Technova Imaging System, ACG Worldwide, Lupin Limited, to name a few. He has expertise in capability building, business psychology, and supports SMEs in their growth and human resource management as consultant and coach. He is a L&D consultant, co-founder and promoter of Association of Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs, an autonomous body to support and foster the business community, especially the MSME segment. Associate member and consultant to Raigad Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Navi Mumbai. He is a visiting faculty to engineering and management colleges in Navi Mumbai. He is a life member of ISTD and office bearer of ISTD in Navi Mumbai. It's our proud privilege to have you with us, Mr. Neil Ramesh. Now, I would like to request you to proceed with the webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for the generous and elaborate introduction.
Most welcome, sir.
Humbled. I feel really humbled. It's a learning thing. We all keep on learning. So whatever we have gathered is there at the back, but we keep looking forward and learning new and more things. So that's the opportunity. And let me take this wonderful opportunity and privilege to thank each one of you, especially Anjali ma'am, the management director, sir, Dr. Vilas Rao Kadam, and of course, Bharatiya Vidyapeeth Institute of Management Studies and Research for giving this wonderful opportunity. Special thanks also for the co-partners, that is NIPM, who is really pioneering the work in the field of personal management. Thanks to Mr. Avinash Somvanshi, yeah, also to Konkan Gyanpeeth, Uran College of Commerce, Professor Kishore Shama, all the dignitaries who are there, the management of Bharatiya Vidyapeeth especially, and also especially a special thanks for taking this forward, that is the Human Capital Club, who is really fostering the whole thing. It's really commendable. So thanks once again. It's a privilege and honor to be part of this wonderful workshop, very aptly named as Competency Mapping Need of the Hour. No doubt about it, as Dr. Anjali ma'am has just shared, it is so relevant, so important. And as we all heard yesterday, how Dr. Sajeev Nair also shared the need and importance, the intensity, the depth of competency mapping and the whole aspect of competency assessment and the whole application of it, which is so relevant in today's world. So thank you once again. It's a privilege and pleasure. And as it would be, it's of course, it's a 3-hour session, but we know that assessment center, or for that matter, even competency mapping, as Dr. Sajeev said yesterday, it's not a 3-hour thing, but yes, whatever experience and insights I have, I would love to share with you all. Normally, these sessions are even conducted as 2-day sessions where a lot of practical aspects are taken in, because the whole thing is not about just theory or knowing, but of course it's important. It's more important as a skill development. It, one can enjoy, as yesterday Dr. Sajeev Nair said, it's as simple and as difficult as riding a bicycle. You can know everything about it, but you will know only when you sit on it and ride it, fall down, drive again. So that's the whole part of it. So, but all said and done, let's enjoy this 3 hours. I would have loved to keep it interactive, but we'll keep the question answers towards the end. So we will start off without taking much time. So once again, a very good morning to all of you. I would like to share the screen. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible. Okay, thanks for that nod. So we begin today's session. Basically, I just wanted to set forth a humorous tone, which you would see in the screen. It's all about the state that each one of us is into. Okay, we are all in that competency journey, trying to find a place, trying to know what we are supposed to do, and struggling at each place. Okay, we are all like something like this, doing what we are doing, trying to do the best and trying to get out the best. And in that process, we are keeping on churning ourselves. But the question is the resultant a joy, or we are still struggling in that journey? So on that note, because it is important that we understand what is this competency, why is it important, and how more relevant today, because today's scenario, as was explained yesterday also, it's such a competitive world. It's not easy. In fact, even Darwin's theory is coming true, that it's survival of the fittest. When we talk of that, it means that competency is what will make a difference. And let's understand a bit more about it. I am sure that this August group, consisting of, I think, HR professionals, teachers, professors, I think research scholars, students, and even corporate and entrepreneurs, I think you all would be aware about it. But all the same, let's just get into refreshing mode. Maybe for someone it's a new thing, for someone it's a refreshing thing, or for someone it would be as repeat as another. But bear with me, let's see how we take it across. So going ahead on this journey, let's see what is it. Are we competent or not? Or what's it in that journey for all of us? The challenge today that we all face is what I would like to share with you all, because it is important. Why is it a big challenge? The new business organization, finally, why are we learning all this? It's not only from academic purpose. Even students who are attending this session, I would like you all to take in and take it forward, because you're going to jump into a big future after doing a management, HR, postgraduate, and all those things, even research people, academicians, and everyone. In fact, there is a challenge at every juncture. So especially when we are talking about industry, the new business organization, the big challenge, if you see, is we need to understand there is a shift from what it was before to what it is moving towards. Earlier, we were all knowing, in fact, the industry friends of mine would appreciate that earlier we were working in finance was in finance, marketing. Yesterday, on focus, there has to be every individual, right from below till top, everyone has to be aligned to the organizational focus. It's very, very important. One cannot survive without that. There is no meaning if one only works in one's own domain. So there is a whole lot of a difference that we talk about. So today, as you see, the whole thing is the enterprise vision is not short term or product focus. It has become long term, and customer is ruling today. Everything is ruled. Everything has to be on focused or centered with the customer. Customer is who is really dictating the terms. Whatever you make, whether as an entrepreneur, a product, or any service that you offer, has to be in the need or alignment or requirement of the customer. Even in the organizational, if you see, typically what it was at one point of time, a hierarchical structure, has moved into more enterprising. What I mean by enterprising is there's a lot of interconnect, understanding the business processes, the connect between each functions. That's where the synergy comes. So it is more enterprising. And then of course it's the networked economy that matters. It's not that one person doing all or one person making a difference. It's the collective difference that's happening. And of course, hub and spoke organization, what does it mean is just like a wheel. All the hubs are independent yet joined together to the hub. So that's what the hub and spoke organizations talk about. So there is independency, there is a uniqueness, there is a difference, but all the same, they all are connected at the periphery and at the center to the organizational goal. Of course, even sales has changed, like having, just that product you make and it is being sold with just little customer knowledge. It's no longer what you make will be sold. It's more about coming to the customer. It has to be customized. So there is a high customer knowledge requirement need. There is a customization, and selling also, the whole ball game has changed. Today you would have seen right from e-commerce to so many things, and it's evolving and evolving. The digitization is bringing in a world of change. Of course, it doesn't stop there. Today, the difference in why I wanted to share with you all, because this is something as a backdrop we should understand. And an organization, it's not about just making a product and selling. To the fine line or difference, because there are so many people in the market, in the arena, making similar products. Price is competitive. You cannot play with price. The difference comes in what are you offering after it. That's after sales service. Earlier it was reactive. Complaint आया तो कुछ करे, customer ने अगर कुछ call किया तो करे. Today it's not like that. It's not reactive. It's become proactive. So the whole process has got integrated. There is a continuous flow of information. There is a feedback that is happening back and forth. One cannot just remain static. So this is the dynamics with which one is working in an organization. So this is the new business, what you call matrix, that is there, and that's the challenge. And this is why the whole need, very aptly as we put when we are talking about competency mapping and followed by assessment centers, it's the need of the hour. Because time, every moment, every time, because it's not that you have your domain knowledge, you have your expertise, you have joined in, you have grown. That doesn't make you, what you call fit enough for the tomorrow. If you have to move to tomorrow, or if you have to be progressive, if you have to be competitive, especially the organization and every individual, we need to be abreast. So we need to upgrade our skills. We need to improve our competency. So it's a continuous thing that's happening. So my dear ladies and gentlemen and students, this is what I just wanted to give you as a backdrop. Of course, I put this slide for you all. Definitely you would ask why, but then it's important to touch base with what is competency all about. Of course, we are going to talk about assessment center, but then it's all about doing to do with competency. So what is competency? I would have loved to had some interaction, but the fact is that since we are having this limited time, I would just like to take forward as to what is competency. Let's understand two significant aspects. We interchangeably talk about it. One is skill and one is competency. Both are intermeshed, but let's understand one is a subset of the other. Skill is very important. Without skill, nothing is there. And what is skill? Skill is the primary ability. Okay, it's an ability to perform any task. And the importance is when one is said to have attained a skill when you can do the same thing repeatedly. So repeated doing of a certain task the way it has to be done. Okay. and in a defined environment. It is not anywhere somewhere. So there is a defined environment. And what is defined environment? A set of rules, regulations, you call it in the industry language SOPs. You have work instructions, you have an environment, work atmosphere rules, like all these things are there. So in a predictable environment, this is what will happen, this is how it will go, all these things are there. So the ability to perform. So this is broadly, it refers to skills. Mostly it is the technical skills or the functional skills, which was referred to by Dr. Nair yesterday. It's very important because that is the starting point. You should to do, it takes care of. So skill, what skill, how do you acquire that? Of the point, you need to have knowledge. He has shared about knowledge, then he share about skill and further enhance your skill. Now, what competency encompasses as well, there is the whole lot of understanding doing, why you are doing, and how we are doing. The whole understanding of your function. It's not a superficial understanding, but it's an in-depth understanding. So knowledge, the third aspect, which is big when you talk about leadership, which as you get into leadership role calls something beyond technical capabilities, and that's where the difference comes. Someone grows up the ladder, hierarchical ladder or the corporate ladder, not because of his technical skills, but all the same, it is important to have the technical skills at each stage. But beyond that, what takes you in a very tangential manner or in a transactional manner trajectory is the attitude part of it. So the attitude is very important, and that attitude is very, very key. And these are the behavioral competencies which we will see today in detail. So that's what it is all about. I just wanted to give you, and a blend of that, it's the IQ and EQ that matters. Unfortunately, EQ today is not given that much of understanding in depth study as far as academics or colleges are concerned. And that is why many of the students landing up in an organization, in spite having high technical knowledge in terms of their degree, diplomas, qualifications, still could not sustain. I have personally experienced in my organizations where I have been associated with so many people. I have seen the graduate engineer trainees, management trainees joining it with great enthusiasm. But once they come in, they are in for shock, because there is a difference between what comfort zone or whatever the protected zone, or only their mindset, which is the straight application of what they have learned into their what you call into the work. But that doesn't happen. There is always a connected related. They need to interact with different disciplines, different aspects, different people, different combinations, different situations, challenges. All these things are something that throws you out of gear, and that is why this EQ is very important. Now all that EQ comes under the behavioral leadership competencies, which are very important. We will just look at it. So I just wanted to give you a backdrop. I know most of you are aware about it, but the fact is, to reinforce this would be very, very important. So primarily, let's see, when you talk about ability, or at the first part of it, that is the technical aspect. If you see, the competence part A would be what? It's skill, experience, and knowledge. Okay? This is what we saw yesterday also. So it's a skill which is there, and skill building doesn't happen overnight. Skill comes only when you put your hands. It's hands-on. You have to dirty your hands. You have to go through. So there are various ways of doing it, like on-job training. It's the experience. It's the going in, doing in, all those things. So that's where you develop a skill. Without actual doing, there is no skill. And especially, I'm just putting it for the students' sake, and even for others, that we need to reinforce this aspect. And that's how the experience gets built up. And experience again is important. Doing it the right way builds up the right experience. And hence, that is where yesterday Dr. Sajeev Nair emphasized on the technical competency. If you do the things wrong, especially he was touching upon the refineries, which is a huge complex what you call an setup where safety is very primary, which he was sharing. And there are so many complications there. So if you don't know, don't have the skill competency to do it the right way, your experience, whatever you gain, would not be the right experience, and then you will be even transferring a wrong experience. So it's important to get the right experience and of course knowledge. Moving further, the important thing that we would be looking today, yeah, of course, these are some things I just wanted to picturize for you all. This is what we talk about: technical competence, technical expertise. Each is a specific job, be it welding or constructing or electrical or whatever it is. It's very important for each one of to know their domain function knowledge. So that's what we call it as a technical competency. Moving ahead, what we have now, very important, if you have to climb the leadership pipeline, it's important that these aspects, behavioral competencies, very relevant for each role function. Yesterday, we talked about competency mapping. Let me just touch something about this at this point of time. Why competency mapping was the first day and this is the second day. Competency mapping is laying down the foundation, making everything. It's like if you're playing cricket, let me tell you, the team gets into play as is where without any forming of the team, basically putting up the right players in the right place. We need to have people who are skilled as bowlers, batsmen, fielders, wicket keepers. All these, if you're not having in a team, if you straight get into and start playing, what will happen? So it is the same thing in an organization also. So competency mapping, you need to map before a team is selected. It's not an easy thing. We might know, oh, this team is selected, we want this person there. Why I'm taking to cricket? Because it's something popular. We can connect with it. But the same intensity is an organization. When an organization selects someone, puts someone on some job or whatever, further there is all sort of promotion happening, upgrading happening, departmental shifts are happening. All these things, when they happen, there is lot of background study that is there and which attributes the competency. So competency mapping is very primary and very important. It is like putting the whole skill matrix in place to who should do what and what is expected out of whom. Then you can evaluate based on those paraphernalias or based on those what you call the matrix or what you call as the mapping. So mapping, without a map, as you know, the word map itself shows what? It shows the whole length and breadth, longitude, latitude. So it shows the depth, height, everything. So that's the map. So getting the map right is very important. Once you know that, you use that map in the practical application, which is the assessment center that we are going to talk. So coming back to behavior, this is important. So understanding and attitude are two important things. Now here, understanding is not only the technical understanding, and that's where I talked about EQ. We should know in today's organization, if you talk of big organizations like Google, Intel, all those big multinationals or the real example organizations, understanding of human being is very important because everything builds up on human relationship. Today, please understand, even selling is on relationship. It's less on your product, but more on your relationship. I am not undermining quality. Yes, quality is important, product is important, but the sustainability builds up on understanding. So it's very important. So it's understanding plus attitude, understanding of the process, understanding of the people, understanding of the environment. So there is a big thing under the U. And then attitude, needless to say, we all know. It's all the approach. You may be the best technically qualified, but if your attitude is not right, if your approach is not right, if your connect is not right, then the whole thing will just crumble down. One will not be able to sustain. Today, you could see in the organizations, my dear ladies and gentlemen and students, you would see today that many big organizations which was there yesterday is non-existing today. It's all because of management decisions, management practices. It's not because of technical incompetency. It's taking the right decision at the right time, going with the change, connecting with people, understanding the customer, understanding the need and change, all these things got missed out. So it's very important. The U plus A, which gets added up here as I have seen below. So it's the ability and the behavior together that we are going to talk about as competence. I hope, am I audible and getting through properly? Can someone just give me a nod?
Yes, sir. Clearly audible.
Thank you so much, Fatima, for that. Yeah. So let's understand this. This is something I really loved, this matrix. I would like to share with you all. It's very important. As we see here, it's the HR management framework based on competency. I'm sure there are HR professionals, there are HR students in this group who's attending this. Let's understand this framework, which is very, very important for us to know. So what are we talking about? Just like Dr. Nair shared yesterday, it's all aligned to the business objectives, business goal, and the business strategy. So the business strategy, मतलब एक business किस लिए है, organization किस लिए है? Even you talk about an institution, an educational institution, yeah. When I walk into Bharati Vidyapit, it gives a good feeling when I see the vision and mission of the institute. That is what is the central driving force. And then comes all your other aspects, the goals, the strategies that flow out. So even for a business strategy is the driving thing because everything is finally connected and aligned to the business strategy. Now, business strategy, yes, it's good at one place, but by itself doesn't complete. You need to make it to work. And when I say you have to make it to work, it has to finally end up in a business outcome, a result. That is, it could be a product, service, it has to be sold, the organization has to make profit, it has to offer, take care of the society needs, the various other needs that is there. So those two, how can it be done effectively and bridged? And that is where HR plays a very important role yesterday. Why I'm giving you this backdrop is this is important rather than just jumping into an assessment. I hope you all will appreciate when I'm taking you all through these aspects. So it's important to understand that HR plays a big facilitating role here. So that's where the competency based people, because finally, who's going to make it happen? It's not the machine that is going to make it happen. The machines, equipments are the tools or the medium. Technology is available at the at the throw. You pay and you get all technology, technical knowledge, everything. But it's the people who are going to make a difference. We all know about it. And how it can be done if the right person is there for the right job at the right time, for the right role, for the right position. But that's where the magic happens. So that's where you see the competency framework, which is there in the center. And that's going to take care of all the important functions of HR or with respect to human resource. That is right from recruitment to training to performance to career management to reward. Everything revolves at the center. The competency frameworks really holds it and gives a meaning, a structure to it by which you can execute all these things scientifically. Otherwise, you would find many organizations, even I have experienced, we have evolved all these things in certain organizations. The intention would be good. करना है, लेकिन कुछ ढांचा नहीं है, कुछ system नहीं है. There is no system in place. So you do it at your own pace or convenience. And what happens is there's a lot of time spent, energy, money spent, and then you don't get the desired results. No one is to blame. It's a learning process. So we need to have all these things in place, and the competency framework really anchors the whole thing because it really defines the whole thing. Yesterday we saw about how it's being evolved. The primary document, which is the job description, I again stress it's a live document. We need to understand. In fact, we conduct workshop on job description evolution. It's a 1 week workshop where every employee is involved. It's not that someone makes a JD, job description, and dumps it. It's being evolved because finally it's a live document. The person who owns that JD is the person who is performing that. So that's how it becomes a document which can be referred. It's so useful right from recruitment to performance management to career to everything. And there are other things which we have seen about competency mapping. We don't need to, I'm just touching that to get a continuity of the whole thing. So let's understand, this is just to summarize the whole thing. Yesterday I picked up because very significantly Dr. Sajeev said three elements of competency. This is just to reinforce in you all, yes, skill, knowledge, and behavior. We need to understand this. So this is just something just to take you within that so that we understand, because these three are important: the skill, the knowledge, and behavior. Because that has to be at the back of the mind when we conduct an assessment center or at any point of time. And believe me, HR plays a very important role here. HR may not be actually doing it, but it is actually orchestrating the whole thing. It has a responsible. And let me just drift and talk to you about HR. I think you all would agree the HR professional today, the face of HR is changing. The HR of 2020, 2021 will not be the same. It's not the silo, it's not the administrative, it is much beyond. HR has to be part of the business processes. They have to be interconnected, intermingled. So they are part of the annual business plan strategies, because they need to be a contributing function. It is not just a function people think that, oh, it's overhead. No way. It cannot even have that. It's totally changed today. Why I'm bidding all those? Because these are something we need to ingrain. And this is, I or my other colleagues have learned the hard way, because we were talking of HR something different, but today it's not so. So all you young budding HR professionals who are there, or even others, would just align with this. That would be really, really something that we need to look forward. So now let's also just understand this question. If at all someone, especially from the student fraternity or even for others for refreshing, what do you mean by competencies? We have seen competency. Now, what are competencies? Let's understand. This is some statements that I've just putting it at all so that we just get aligned to one understanding of what are competencies. So competencies at that level are broader concepts which encompasses demonstrable performance output. So the key term is demonstrable. Everything could be within. I could say I have everything, I know everything, but that doesn't make any difference. It will happen only when you're able to show it in your behavior, in your outcome, in your output. It is able to be seen in terms of your behavior or output in terms of product or service. So it's a demonstrable performance output and associated with a designated behavior, which is very important. So there are certain behavioral inputs that are there, and that is a minimum standard that is set while you're performing your work. So that's very important for us to understand. And of course, time and again, as yesterday also we said, it's all to provide you with an organizational focus. It's not me, it's like in cricket, it's not me making a century for myself, no, but it's the bigger role of the organization that you should win the match. So there is a difference, the whole mindset. It's not about me making my record, but it's about my contribution to the organization for the growth and development of the organization. So these are the building blocks that we are talking about. And competencies are key performance indicators. We know this word KPIs, which is part of any performance management system, because those are indicators. They are what indicate how a person is performing vis-a-vis what is expected to. So there is a measurement criteria, which is the key performance indicator for every employee that is there at different areas and different levels. So competencies are the key performance indicators, and they provide for an individual an indication or a map of behaviors and actions which are valued, recognized in organizations. So we'll see different type of competencies as we go along. There are three broad things that I would talk to. So of course, this I'm just sharing, we just to emphasize that what is the need and importance of organizational competencies. Needless to say, yesterday we have dived enough. I think Dr. Sajeev took us wonderfully well into the importance of these competencies, and that is why the need of the hour is that. Because if an organization has to remain competitive and excel, then competencies are very, very important. So it has to have well-defined values and competencies. There are certain values also. Today, good organizations, if you take of Wipro, Godrej, if you take of Infosys, they are all value-driven organizations. Believe me, there is also values that are mapped. And these are what you call, non-negotiable. Something like integrity, we will see to it. Integrity, honesty, there are certain things where organizations, come what may, are seen that way. And that's why people like to get associated, to tell proudly that I am working for so and so, I am connected with so and so. There is a big difference. So there is value also. So behavior, skill, attitudes which lead to successful performance of the organization, it's very important. Okay, so we move further on this and understand there are three core competencies that we would see. One is the core competency. We will see what it is. Cross-functional. These are all touched upon yesterday. I'm just reinforcing that because this happens to be the taking forward into what we are going to assess. So core competencies, cross-functional, and the functional competencies. We'll understand that in this slide much more better. The fundamental things, that is the core ones, are something that I said is non-negotiable. That is an organizational driven across. It is common competency or attribute for everyone in that organization that governs. So this is critical for all the employees. As I said, values, culture, business imperatives, this could mean a lot of things. So this is what I was just sharing with each one of y'all. So this really reflects the organization. It represents the organization. It is really the the image of the organization. Then you talk about the other one, cross-functional. This again are leadership things. So these are typical because, as I said, there are a lot of cross-functional linkages in an organization. It's not that the organization, the function is in silos. It works. There is a lot of interconnect. So herein we look into lot of interconnect, interpersonal skills, customer centricity, then relationship, there is negotiations, there are so many other aspects that come into play. And these are critical for managerial and executive roles. And the last, but not the least, but that actually is the starting, what yesterday was shared, is the functional domain. That is the technical domain. That is what a person should know as per his or her role, function, or job. That's very important. So it's specialized know-how or abilities. It's about the function or job specific. So these are something that just to keep you abreast about the whole thing. So let's understand a popular framework just for your understanding. So we have the core competencies required for excellent performance across all levels and functions. Then you have leadership and management competencies. We are going to look that into more details, which really makes for every employee to move up the corporate ladder, for him to progress, for him to develop. Okay, because that is what every employee, once he steps into an organization, doesn't want to remain static. Sabko badhna hai, upar chadna hai. So everyone wants to grow. Why does someone leave an organization and go? There are many reasons. One of the important reason is growth. If he or she doesn't get the required growth or the development in terms of what you call not only functional or in terms of even emotional, but in terms of his own going up, getting more responsibilities, then a person looks for change. It's not only money. So these are very important, the leadership and the management competencies. And then, of course, we saw function wise is the function specific competencies that we have seen here. Yeah. So let's talk about the first thing. Yesterday we touched upon the importance need, as Dr. Sajeev Nair stressed upon the technical competencies. So let's look at the technical competencies today first before we move into the leader. Now we are moving into the assessment part of it. Having done this base work, we know they need importance, everything. And yesterday we had a good insight about the framework, about the competency mapping. We today just reinforce that we are entering the zone today. The first thing is the technical. Why this is first and foremost, as Dr. Sajeev Nair said yesterday, it's important because that's the first entry. Believe me, when we join as freshers, we only carry our academic knowledge. We have hardly anything hands-on. Yes, you may have your workshop, you have your laboratories, you have your workstations in the college, but that is limited or restricted. They are under very, what you call, pilot plants, or very limited conditions are there. The conditions are very, very what you call in a controlled condition, as you say. But once you step into an industry, things become very, very volatile, dynamic. There are so many factors that come into play. And hence, as yesterday it was shared, safety is one very important aspect, and also hands-on job. So there is a lot of on the job. That is why any trainee, when he gets inducted, he is not directly put into the job. He is always under the shadow of someone. He has a buddy or he has someone, a supervisor who is mentoring him. It's required. So there are organizations which really foster this. Good organizations give you a full arena, full playground to really develop your skills. So it's important. So the way that you approach and develop your technical skill is very, very important, because that's the starting, because you're meant for that. The rest follows, but the first thing is the technical or functional. You're meant for a role. If you're sales, if you're marketing, if you're in manufacturing, if you're an operator, or if you're a supervisor, or if you're in say HR, or whichever function, you need to know about that function, the hands-on thing. That's very, very important. It cannot be that you just know superficially, oh, I know this is HR function, this is that, this is recruitment, or this is about manufacturing, this comes and this goes, this is put and this is how it put. That is okay, but you need to have an in-depth knowledge of exactly what the process is, what are the steps, and what happens when you take that steps. These are very, very important. And then you have to actually perform. Finally, you're there to do. As yesterday, he said, it's not only to know, but it's actually to perform. And today, mind you, every organization is only result oriented. Today the organizational the game is changed. People are not bothered about your 9 to 5 job, or you come that way and this way, you sit here and do that. Yes, that's in a way, yes, but beyond that, the focus today, especially where it's non-technical, of course, when in the manufacturing you have to follow certain rules, regulation, protocols, there is a whole lot of everything. But for the others, when we are talking about, because we are covering the whole gamut, there the flexibility is there. Why it's being given? Because that needs to happen. You be open, liberal, your thought has to happen, you have to go creative. There are so many things, and the important thing here is, are you delivering? The result is important, because finally that's what matters. Everything else is fine. So this is something that we need to keep in the back of the mind. So talking about technical or functional competencies, let's understand what is tested in a technical or functional competency. The first one, as you would see, is of course the knowledge. You should know about your job, about your role, about the functions, about the process. So we're covering the whole lot of it. So this is necessary. Without you knowing what to do and how to do and what are you doing, you can't get into it. Okay, you should know about it. So it's necessary to do a job, and it tends to be job related. So it includes professional and institutional knowledge. Okay. So when I say institutional, what it means is you know the in-depth about the organizations. So within the organization, the company, the plant, you should know everything about it. There are so many aspects. Yesterday, when we talked, there was discussion on safety. Safety is such a complex thing, and it's so important today. Safety environment. Every organization need to be certified. Okay, it's called Safety, Health, and Environment. There is something called as OSHAs, if you would know about it. So there is health hazard, safety, all these things. Today, the government, the rules, regulations are very, very strict. So every individual needs to go through a safety training program, a practical training program. So why are these there? Because these are important. This is part of the technical training. Because it's not only how to operate a machine or how to do, but you should also know in terms of exigencies, in terms of emergencies, how do you behave? Because as yesterday it was shared, it would result into fatalities. So these are very important that we should know about it. So the first thing that's tested, and believe me, I have been with organization where we had DuPont safety system, where every employee went through a safety program, and it was a practically based test, and there was a certification that was done, and periodically it is audited. Even let me tell about fire. In every good organization or organizations where I have worked, fire safety is very important. We had periodic on-site emergency plan. We had what you call emergency evacuation. Even a office person should know how to handle a fire extinguisher. It might sound something odd, but it's not weird. It's important. Many a time, just because you don't know how to handle a fire extinguisher, one has lost so many. What you call not only documents, but even lives could be saved. So all these things are quite important. So then, of course, we talk about skill. That's the technical skill that we are talking. Those are skills that are needed to perform functional roles. These include what? Technical skills, management skills, to manage resources. This is very important again. In today's thing, you need to know, because all your resources are scarce. It is not available. It costs money. So inventory management, how do you manage all your resources? Okay, not only money, it's the raw material, people, everything. So value stream mapping is another important subject that is there. Of course, we are not going into that, but it talks about how can you minimize the waste, how can you minimize the cycle time, how can you eliminate the waste duplication or repeatable processes. So many things are there. So total productive maintenance, this is again an important aspect with the technical guys would appreciate. Now, yesterday we were touching upon technical competency. So total productive maintenance, reliability centered maintenance. So it talks about maintaining something, how reliable it is. Reliability is how much can you depend upon its performance that it does not fail. What is the time span? And then risk-based maintenance. So these are all the aspects that is there you need to understand. And the third is, of course, competencies influence how well people apply their knowledge. So when you say someone is competent, you know that he can apply whatever knowledge and technical and management skills quite well. And that is why we need people who are competent, and this competency needs to be assessed. Okay. So we're talking about technical competency. This is taken right from onboarding. Onboarding is when a person is inducted into an organization. So when he's inducted to an organization, and the whole initial process, which we call right from the interview till he settles into his or her job, it's very important. That's called onboarding. So this is very important. At that aspect also, you need to be having that technical competency, which is important. And of course, during the assessment. So let's look at this. Let's understand this. So job description for the role and person specification are provided by the organization. Now, this is a base document. Now, when a new person joins, yesterday we talked about job description. Job description is a live document. It is like, the total thing about that person with respect to his or her role or his responsibility. A job description, I hope you all are familiar with it. It starts with job purpose. Then it talks about the accountability, the responsibility, the key result areas. Then it talks of KPIs and the deliverables. It's the whole thing. It's the kundli. It talks about the competencies, the interconnects, the decision making, what that person can do in his in his role or responsibility, whichever it is. For example, if you are a manager HR, then manager HR has a job description. The job description starts with why that position role exists. So the purpose defines it very clearly, which is the setting off for the purpose, what is delivered, what is expected. So job description happens to be, so when a new person joins, or even at the time of interview, you would see good companies float the job description so that people can align with it. It's very important. That's the starting stage. Oh, these are the required, so I don't align with it, so it is not suitable for me. Many a times what happens, that's why if it is not done technically at that point correct, you will land up into recruiting a person who's not suitable for that job. And that results into huge cost in terms of time, money, everything. No one has that luxury. I hope you all are appreciating this point. So this is something available, an organization. Now this, as yesterday we shared, these are normally in big organizations. But today, let me tell you, as we are fostering MSMEs, we are even trying to bring in this insight knowledge in a small way, but in the way which is practical to them. Tell me which organization doesn't want to prosper? बड़े कंपनियों को ही बड़ा होना है, छोटे कंपनियों को prosper नहीं करना है, profit नहीं करना है. So there is an awareness that is required in the MSME segment today, and that is where we are trying to now build up. Yes, the big companies have their infrastructure, their whole what you call things that are set in place, systems, policies, everything. So that is why we said these are more prevalent in the big organizations, the multinationals or the limited companies. But the smaller ones are unaware about, they are somehow anyhow running the business. They're happy, okay, itna profit kar raha hai, itna grow, theek hai, but they are not understanding what are they losing out. The moment you sensitize them, this is what you're losing out or what you could gain, the whole thing will change. It's a paradigm shift. So this job description is very important, whether it is small or big, that everyone should know what his or her role is. And it defines everything. The job description document is a live document. It's not something to be filed in. It is something that has to be referred to because that happens to be the basis. So it's very important as we are talking. The next is what happens in terms of technical. Now I'm talking of onboarding, and then we talk about assessment. So onboarding itself, the technical competency is mapped because you need to select the right person for the right job with the right technical competence. So the job description first need to be matched. The next is panel interview that happens. Now, what's this panel interview? This is done by qualified experts inside or outside. You could call people from outside if you are not equipped or there is no what you call timeshare available, because there are a lot of times you don't have the mind share there because there are other priorities you need to focus, but HR could facilitate the whole thing. So there are qualified trainers or experts who conduct. Now they are based on what? Various systems. That is why in the college you have this technical, you need to know you need to have insights on what's happening on the other side. You have the theoretical, but the actual practical thing, how the walls operate, how the pumps operate, what is meant by maintenance, various other aspects, how are the control systems, the flow systems, how do you come to know about it? Now, these are some things you need to get to know. Okay, that is why this is something add-on that needs to be, provided to the students. So knowledge of basic automation, motion control systems, maintenance, the aspects of maintenance, the need, importance, how do you go about it? How do you monitor the whole thing? Now, these are tested. Now, this is done by a panel interview. Again, let me tell you, this is at the starting stage. So there are various stages at which you test. You can't go into very in-depth because that person has not even seen that machine at the time of interview. But the basic knowledge of technical aspects are required. So that is how it is done at the process of onboarding. Then you have assessment exercises. Now, in a technical assessment exercise, what? There are a lot of exercises and tests which you can, and it is typically done in big organizations, again, in an engineering training center where you have a pilot plant or you have some prototypes or things. Now, these are, again, as you say, these are highest predictive validity of selective techniques. Typically, practical assessment, okay, some may be longer. So that is why any trainee who joins in goes through what you call training period. Now, GETs normally in a good organization have almost 1 to 2 years of training, after which they get into the job. Why? This is a time investment made into that employee or the trainee for a future, because after that 2 years, he is expected to perform at a competent level, not to commit mistakes. So those 2 years or 1 to 2 years, every good organization, every management or a graduate engineer training goes through that. It's very important. It's a time well invested. That is what big organizations do. Whereas unfortunately in small and all, they don't have that time limit. They immediately put the person on the job. But then what happens? There is a consequence to it. You will learn, but definitely there will be a consequence. It will not be the right the first time. There will be errors, mistakes. So that needs to be taken into account. So this is the assessment exercises. So some assessment exercises involves where the employees subjected to or taken through are these. One is troubleshooting techniques. So fact finding exercise. So now These are some things where you're exposed to, you're given a particular situation, and then you are supposed to find out what could go wrong. So now here you need to use lot of tools and methodologies. Okay, problem solving methods, all these are something that is learned. Problem solving techniques, you have various techniques how you can apply all these things. Then you have analysis and scheduling. Now scheduling is a very important aspect. You need to schedule, because people who are in production planning or even in production or maintenance, you need to schedule the whole thing. You have to analyze. Then there are oral presentations of work done, communicating influence. Are you able to communicate properly the directions, the instructions? Many a times, even I have experienced it, that because of miscommunication, some when there is a handover from one shift to another, one person to another, you assume the other person knows or has understood. You communicate in a way, oh, now मैंने तो बता दिया, but he has not understood, and it has resulted in a wrong, what you call, execution. So these are important. So these are tested again when you are able to communicate. Then creativity and innovation is today's buzzword. No one can just remain ki, okay, I am doing my job, but every day is a new day. You need to look at things of improvement, continuous improvement, innovation. These are all part of the whole thing. You would have heard of words like Kaizen and all that, which is very much there. Continuous improvement, these are all in good organizations. You can spread it anywhere. Now when I'm taking even institutions can have this. You can bring in new methodologies, as we have seen in today's thing. In this pandemic situation, what has happened, digitization, online learning, what we are doing now, all this we would not have done earlier. We would have preferred face to face, which is still preferred, but today we have learned the new ways. There are ways available for us to connect effectively, and there are so many add-ons that are there. So adaptability, I mean, creativity and innovation in problem solving is something that is looked up. You are given a problem, you're given some situation, and then are you able to solve that problem? Are you able to think out of box? These are all what are tested in technical way. Then we see about adaptability and making informed decisions. Now, decision making is very primary, may not be at the operator level, but as you go up the ladder, it is important because you have to take decisions, and decisions have consequences. Decision decision जब आप लोगे, there is an consequence, because that's important. So taking the right decision is very important. So there are situations given where you are asked to take decisions out of various options available. These are the ways it is tested. So technical assessment is done from onboarding or during the, in that manner. Then creativity and innovation. This is something very important. Are you able to come up with solutions? Now today everyone says, my boss used to say, don't come to me with problem, come to me with solutions. No one would want anyone to approach with problems. Yes, problem hai, but you need to come not with the problem, but your own understanding or your own solution sets. It may be right, wrong. That shows that you are part of the solution and not part of the problem. That's what is the thing today. So everyone is looking to that creativity and innovation. Now, these are the things, how things are being tested. Okay, at the onboarding stage and also at the assessment at different level when you talk about technical aspects. We'll see some more. And then, of course, there are group exercises. These are also very important. That is also tested normally because we always work in a group. The ability to evaluate work with a team, because many a times there are projects. Now, very importantly, projects always happen in a group. It is not one person. So you need to see your action is impacting someone else, your work, it is all dovetailed. Okay, you all would have studied or you would know about project management. So it's important when you talk as a group, there is a team effect, there is a synergy. All these things are important when you're talking about it. So I'm just touching base with the technical aspects. We will go into what you call the actual assessment center process, which will be more for the behavioral aspects. But I'm starting off with this technical because it is important. Technical thing we cannot do practically at this juncture here, but I'm only giving you a flavor as to how technical assessment is carried out in various ways. There are some more technical things which I'll share with you now. Some examples of assessment tests that is carried out. Okay, y'all can just go through it. Yeah, these are some typical things which are done. These are some examples that I've picked up. Now, determining whether the candidate can troubleshoot production machinery faults by going online. Okay, so a candidate is, subjected to exposure, that he's given a situation. Okay, this is the problem. Does he apply his theoretical knowledge? Does he apply his practical knowledge? Is he able to assess a situation? Now again, this is all calling for analytical skills, troubleshooting skills, problem solving skills, along with your technical know-how. You need to know how things operate. That's where knowledge, yesterday as we said, knowledge is not the superficial, but it is the knowledge of actually how an equipment or an instrument works or a process happens. It's very, very important. So determining whether the candidate can add additional functions or modify. Now, especially in case of IT, okay, how do you take that? Are you able to modify it, make it more simpler, easier, faster? Today, that's what, anything that you do, the value engineering, what are we talking about? Is anything that is at hand, can you make it do faster, simpler, yeah, easier, user friendly, with less errors? These are all the things that you need to look at it. So determining whether the candidate can additionally, add some functions or features. Now you have in the organizations, I don't know, people who are in this, if they are from the corporate, they would appreciate, you have a lot of, like, idea cell, or you have innovation cell in an organization. What they do is, people who can offer solutions of making their own job or something, some modifications, some ideas that they can put, which can change the whole thing. It can make things work faster, easier, better. So whether you are able to modify or put some functions, these are all something, okay, on a production equipment to continue with production as a permanent solution, or to sort out a problem. Now, determining whether the candidate can incorporate additional simple systems. Now, see, at that level, you can't expect something big, but yes, can he put in some simple changes in that? That shows his mindset, his technical application. Okay, maybe add a measuring device, add a sensing device. These are some examples that I've put. These are all industry specific again. Okay, and then determining whether a candidate can install, troubleshoot DC AC drives. Now, this I am talking technical, okay? People who are technical background can connect with these terms and configure, meet the operational and technical requirements. And why I'm stressing on this is, as we said, technical competency or technical assessment is important, because anyone who is connected with hands-on to work on machines or processes in a plant, as was shared, is very important, because it can't be only for the white collar, it is for all. Okay, so whether a person can design simple ladder diagrams from scratch, from controlling simple machines, safety interlocks. Many a times in our we had a process plant where people have lost their hand because there are moving wheels. Now, an employee could design some guard or something like that, where even if you want, you can't put your hand, that saves the whole thing. Now, these are all some innovative things. How can you do those things? Now, this is how you assess how that person can do that. Then determining whether candidate is familiar with the communicating systems of various electrical and electronic devices. There are signals and transmissions that happen. There are informations that are passed on, based on which you act, or you're able to decipher that. Okay, utilize that data. Data management is something very important. Now, why I'm connecting all this from technical aspect is, every organization has its own way of assessing technical competencies. It is again industry specific. An electrical background person will have his own, mechanical will have, electronic will have, a civil will have different. But you need to have some basic things when you get into the industry, and that's how it happens. So there is a continuous evaluation of how that person is upgrading himself, his skill, his competency. It's very, very important. I hope you're getting this point when I'm taking it. Okay. So with this, I'm just touching upon the technical aspects. We move on to what we call as assessment center in practical, where we have the behavioral leadership assessment center, which is very important, because moving beyond the technical, once you're into an organization, your technical competency is taken, okay, because you're expected to have that technical competency. Yes, you need to upgrade by learning new skills in terms of maybe new machines that have come or new things, new techniques, new technology. That's one. For which, how do you do it? You do training, on the job training, you undergo training program. These are the outcomes of the assessment. An organization, something new comes in, you need to get a trial for it. Okay. So you need to go through that. You are sent for training programs, right? Hands-on training. So you are made to work on pilot plants or prototypes and things like that. So these are there, but that's at the starting stage. But once on here, every individual moves up the corporate ladder. Now what takes you up is the behavioral leadership qualities. Because for every position, as we said yesterday, when we were talking about competency mapping, the competencies changes and the levels change, the intensity, the complexity, the spread changes when you go from supervisor to manager to general manager to vice president to you may call it what you call CEO or COs. It will change, but there is competency required at every level and also functional level. For the sales, it is different. There are, we said three. There are some non-negotiable common. Then there is something that is interfunctional. Then there is a management thing that is what we are going to talk. And then something we talk of technical. Okay. Now, this is something I wanted to bring you all. We would be calling it as ADC. Why? I'll tell you, because an assessment center typically talks about only assessing the gaps. We will see what it is. A development center adds on a development aspect because any organization doesn't only want an employee to know what his gaps are, but also needs to support that individual. What we talk about developmental plans, that how that person, he or she would be able to fill in that gap with adequate training or support or mentoring or whatever you call it, okay, which is an outcome of the assessment center. And hence what we are calling is, it's more nurturing, it's more holistic, it's more supportive, it's more development, it's more growth oriented. So assessment center, we typically call in different organizations, yes, assessment, of course, technically it is assessing, but it doesn't stop at assessing, it moves beyond assessing into developing that individual to cover up that gap. Okay. So we, in my further references, I will be calling it as ADC, that is Assessment Development Center. So what all we are going to see now, it's 11:20. We have time, say about an hour or more. So we will cover through various aspects as far. We are going to dive deeper today. So this is what we are going to see today. The contents of the whole assessment center. Sounds a long tail, yeah. So, but it'll be interesting. Just flow with me as a story, yeah, as an interesting film that we are going through, but of course with a mindset of taking in, connecting with it, yeah. So then that makes the story more meaningful. So let's flow with these things. We're going to understand the objective definition. We're going to see the process. We'll see the typical process flow of an assessment center, some tests and instruments. What do they mean? Maybe it's familiar to most of y'all or some of y'all or no, but that's fine. My encouragement is let's be part of the whole flow and enjoy it. Okay. So taking it further, let's understand the basic objective of an assessment center. The primary thing is to identify competency gaps. Let's be very straight and specific. An assessment center helps you to identify competency gaps. Identified competency gaps. Okay. Now, identified, that's already done. It's a precursor to the whole thing. An outcome of competency mapping. You know, for different functions, for different roles, for different levels, there are different competencies which are predefined, which something I will share later on. और उसका gaps को identify करना है, and gaps in whom? In individuals. कि where are they now and where are they expected to be? So that is to identify the competency gap. The next is, as I said, since we are calling it as a development center, it's to evolve development plans for the identified competencies. And third, to provide significant input for role fitment or enhancement. That is the end result. It doesn't stop there. What does it happen? All this you do, but why? It's not only to say pass fail as yesterday. It is not pass fail. It is competent or not yet competent as yesterday it was shared. So if you are not yet competent, the objective is to make you competent. So the organization wants you, and you also want to make yourself competent. So finally, develop a plan, and then that should result in your growth and development. So it could be to provide some role fitment, a new role created, enhanced role, okay, or move up the ladder. Okay, so that's the objective. So let's understand what is an assessment development center, as we are calling it. Yeah, it's not an anyhow somehow process. It is not something that you do it just like that. Okay, and it is not something, yes, but I'm not going into the history of it. There is an evolvement that has happened. People have started it. There was a need based what was done because there was a struggle, okay, where this has come in. I am not going into the history part of it. It's interesting, but still. So over a period, across organization, there are some standardizations that have happened. Of course, it is still being improved, but it's a method that has been evolved over a period of time to see that due justice is done to the whole process of assessment center. So it's a reliable scientific method for mapping competencies of individuals with respect to their current and future roles. Now you understand this. A assessment center and a development center is always future oriented. It is not backward. It is not only the current, but yes, it's the current with respect to where you have to move into the future. Bear in mind, it doesn't stop here. It has to move to the future. So it is future oriented. It's very important. Then only it makes it more meaningful. So it is with respect to the current and future roles of an individual in an organization. Then it serves also as a useful tool for creating personal measurable development plans. As we said, individual development plans are outcome of it. When you know the gap, how do you fill in the gap? There are personal development plans that are evolved. That's very important. So it is a useful tool for evolving that. Then identification of internal talent. Now, talent management is a very important thing. It's not so easy for, see, organizations prefer to foster and develop their own employees up. It's not easy every time chahiye to bahar se recruit karo. Then what is it for the people who are inside the organization? There has to be ample scope, ample opportunity for each individual to enhance their skill competencies and grow up. So for internal talent development, you can identify who are the star performers, who are the probables who are can move up, who can be considered to move up the pipeline, the leadership pipeline. Yeah, all these things. Then support of talents further for growth and development of managerial skills. Even at the time of recruitment, in the terms of interview, it is important, and for also employees in the various managerial positions. I hope you're getting it across. Fatima, am I audible? Is it okay? Thank you. Okay, now let's just talk about what's the value to the organization. Beyond what we have seen, the objective, let's see what is it really adding value to the organization, these assessment or development centers. Okay, it helps the business to grow from where it was today to a tomorrow. So that's the business value. Because all this agar aap karke, agar organization wahi ka wahi raha, yeah, it doesn't profit, it doesn't grow, it's of no use. Everything, as we saw, has to be dovetailed, aligned to the organizational goals, organizational growth, organizational development. So it has to be aligned to the business strategy. So the organization also has to move from today to tomorrow at a different level. So that's the basic thing. So what is it? What's the value that these processes add to the organization? Okay. So it's a method of predicting future performance by using job simulation, a measure of participants' ability to future responsibilities. Okay, so it's a method. Now there has to be some method where you can predict how that person is expected and going to behave when he goes into another position. I hope you are understanding this. Suppose आज वो supervisor है, कल वो manager बनेगा. So when he is a supervisor, you need to ascertain and you need to make him know that this is what is expected out of him when he becomes a manager, not when he reaches a manager, because this will help him to be on the turn, the leadership pipeline. That is his getting ready to become a manager. Not कि manager बना दो और फिर उसको assessment करो. No, he is assessed when he is ready, he is ripe enough or ready when you feel or when you see that he is ready for that turn to go. That's important. So it's predicting the future performance. The next is the emphasis on potential. Like again, I have said, I'm repeating, it's the futuristic. So it's the potential that is seen. This person can move up the ladder, he can move there, and this is what is required. So he is being assessed not for his current role or performance, but he is assessed for his future role. That is very important here. Okay. So though his past performance becomes his qualification or becomes the recommendation point that yes, he is eligible for that. So we will see how people get nominated or go through the assessment centers when we talk about assessment. This also, as I said, from recruitment, also within the organization for growth, this is applied. So his past performance becomes a yardstick, okay, to identify the potential candidates who can be part of the assessment center. Okay. Now, it also provides an objective and robust methods of improving both individual and organizations' awareness of skills, strengths, and gaps. Of course, because it throws up that. And finally, an organization work, it's a group of individuals, okay? It's a collective performance, collective effectiveness of the people that spells out the organizational effectiveness, okay? So this is the value that is given. That is why the need of the hour, when you say, it is all the more required today in a competitive world, in a situation where things are so dynamic, so volatile, in this VUCA situation, for every organization to have people who are competent. Okay. And so it's an opportunity as well. It's an opportunity for individuals to prove themselves, to equip, to develop, as well as a need for the organization to have so. Okay. So some research facts, these are something which would help you. Why assessment center? The probability now, if you have to choose a performer, or when you're recruiting, now we good organizations conduct assessment center for even candidates at the time of recruitment. Okay, the first screening of course happens through your CV, but CV by itself cannot you can put everything and anything on your CV. It can look very what you call impressive. Yes, of course there are facts, but still at that stage, as it says, it's only 15% that you can validate that. Then even through interview, suppose I talk, normally earlier assessment centers were not part of the interview process. Okay. It was primarily interviews. They were interviewed, oh, acha, do char question pooch liya, ye kar diya, okay, all that, okay, you feel good. It goes with appearance, it goes with his communication skill, it goes with some technical knowledge that he has, fine, it's okay. But primarily, if you see the percentage, 76% you can really assess is through the assessment center. That is why for key positions, or also for nowadays for all the positions, you take the candidate through the assessment center even at the recruitment stage. And it's validated by many big organizations who have a very well-defined recruitment process. Okay. So it observes totally how the people are actually performing. That's very important on the job, because those simulations are created in the assessment center where it is like job like, you're given near job like कि वो बंदा किस तरह से perform करता है, because that is the practical testing. Okay, it's something like you have your practicals also, which is important rather than theory. So a well-designed assessment is both effective and is available for assessing individuals, both individual and group-based environment. Now there are a lot of group dynamics also, because in an assessment center we will see some of the tests and instruments which you might be familiar, where there is a group involved. Okay, because why? Because an individual doesn't remain an individual when he joins an organization. He becomes part of the organization. He becomes part of the team. He becomes part of the group. So it's important that the decisions he takes, that he interacts, that he goes along, how effective he is along with the group. So that is also an important criteria. So all these can be checked. Okay. Now this is something just to have a fun about it before we go into it, why we need again competency mapping and very specific competencies for specific levels and specific job roles. Okay. Just on a lighter note, yes, if you apply the same yardstick for all, then what is going to happen, we all know. Okay. So it means only a fiasco. And it's wrong to judge everyone with the same yardstick. So that is why competency assessment is very role specific. It is level specific, job specific. And that is why that competency mapping is a very, very important prerequisite. Yeah. Are you with me? Okay. So let's look.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So let's go at the essential features of ADC. I will just call it ADC, the Assessment Development Centers. So the first thing that we said out of this is the important background at the basis is competency framework of relevant behaviors required for levels in management at a company level. Now we will see how those behaviors affect and what are they. And why are we talking about behaviors here? Because we said behaviors are something that are observable. Behaviors wo hota hai, which is can be seen, can be measured, can be assessed. Something that is inside you have everything will not be known unless it is brought out. Finally, you have to put it to action. So that's why this assessment center looks at the behaviors in terms of all, in terms of communication, your body language, the way you do, the way you conduct, the way you actually perform, all these things. So that's where these things come. The competency framework of relevant behaviors required for levels in management at company level. Then choice of relevant behaviors out of competency framework. Now, competency framework is a derivative of the whole thing that we saw yesterday. It is coming out, or it's evolved from the competency framework that is coming out. Okay. So this is suited for a specific level or a specific role. And then for each of these, there has to be a measurement technique. And that is crucial because how do you measure it? So you have a measurement technique selected based on choice of instruments. We will see what are these instruments that are most likely to bring out these desired behaviors in participants. I want you all to just focus on this paragraph. It's very important. So the measurement techniques, how do you measure? Because it's very important to know if you cannot measure, then you really cannot evaluate. You need to measure it. Okay. So anything that you cannot measure is of no value. So that's why even in the assessment center, there are techniques where even intangibles can be measured to some extent of accuracy because it's important, because these are behaviors. Okay. So, but there's a lot of standardization evolution that has happened, which we will see. So measurement techniques selected based on choice of instruments that are most likely to bring out desired behaviors in participants. Tools used are statistically validated in their ability to do so. So now this is very important. These are not just some tools one-off. They are statistically valid. When you say statistically means there is a, what you call check that is done on how accurate the reliability of the whole thing. Okay. Because statistically means time and again when you have done it, if it is giving the same result, it means it is statistically proved. Okay. So that's how it goes about. So these are some essential features. Now we'll talk about the assessment methods at this point of time. Yeah. Let's talk about assessment methods. The first and foremost, let's talk about a very unique process. Now, when we are talking about this, which is 360-degree assessment process, this by itself is a separate thing. This is normally not part of the normal assessment center or assessment process, but all the same, it's an important assessment process. Now, 360 degrees normally is carried out by big organizations, typically for higher positions or positions where there is a lot of cross-functional interactions or where that person's interactions with other domains are crucial or important, where others what you call opinions or their um, what you call inference about that person makes a big change. It becomes a very self-revealing thing. In fact, there is a lot of maturity that is required when you're talking about 360 degrees. One has to volunteer. Let me tell you of the organization where I have worked. 360 degrees, we have a full set of process laid down. It's again, it's a system-based thing, but the key thing is one has to volunteer. One is not forced. No, you go through 360. It's more volunteering because the outcome is to be something internalized, because in this process you get feedbacks from different levels. So you should be open to get this constructive criticism or constructive feedback. So it's a process we need to know. And 360 is used in many companies. It is sensitive, but it is very, very effective as a self revelation. So it's the most effective when individual receives feedback from all groups. When you say all groups, 360, why? From your subordinates, from your peers, from your seniors, from other stakeholders, from customers. So many people would you could seek feedback, okay, as it is mentioned there. So it's a very important tool, but it's a very sensitive tool. So it provides a valid assessment of a person, how that person is seen by others in terms of his various, again, it would be based on competencies about his effectiveness, his interpersonal skills, his decision making skills, everything is there. Okay, we will see that later on in detail also a bit more. And the other, what we are talking or we will be going deep is the Assessment Development Center. So Assessment Development Center evaluates an employee's competencies, where we have seen KSA, that is knowledge, skill, and attitude. And it is done using predefined scale and exercises. Why predefined? Yes, there has a matrix. There is something that is a ready reckoner which is there. So that is why when competency mapping is done, you arrive at various competencies, the level of complexities, the different levels. I'll show you some examples later on as some samples where you could connect with it. Yeah, once we are through with this, and exercises to evaluate on each competency that is applicable to every. Now it is individual based. It's with respect to every employee. Okay. Here we will see that ADC can be defined as a variety of testing techniques designed to allow participants to demonstrate under standardized conditions. Now these are again test conditions which are standardized. Okay, there are certain simulated situations that are there. What the typical skills and abilities that are essential. Now these competencies are so selected that they are of primary or the key competencies that are required for that person to demonstrate in his or her role. It's very important. So that is why it is role job specific. Okay. So it uses a variety of assessment simulations where we have seen, if you have mentioned, we'll go into detail of these things. Okay. Like in basket, questionnaires, interviews, role plays, group discussions, all these things. We'll now just dive a bit deeper into 360 degrees. As I said, it's self-introspective. It's like looking into a mirror. Okay. Looking glass of self. You can just uh, dwell upon this image that's given, what is there, which will help you to understand it better. Take a few moments just to look at it. Yeah. There are two, this is a very important aspect as when we are talking about 360, although it's not part of the main thing, assessment center, but it's an important assessment tool. Because we always feel ki hum aisa hai. We have our own perception about ourselves. And then we might be wondering why others are not having that. So it's important to know there are some gaps, blind spots. Now it's very important to know in terms of competencies. It's not just out of some whims and fancies. So it's a very structured thing, but a very, very self-revealing. So there are others' perception and your own perception. Okay. So strengths are what? You get some strengths where whatever feedback you get from others are positive and you know about it. Now, I hope you all know Johari's window. It's a very important tool of self uh, revelation, okay, understanding self. You would have all heard of Johari's window. This is something constructed on the same lines. The first quadrant, you see that you get a positive feedback, and you also know that you have these strengths. So it's a good news and it's not surprising. Okay. Then there is something that you yourself don't know that you have these qualities. You might be undermining it. आप अपने आप को कम सोचते होंगे. अपने आप you might be thinking I'm not so good at that. So it comes to you as a good feedback and it's surprising. Oh, am I so? ऐसा भी है क्या? So it's something good. So these are something you need to further strengthen, and that is why it's the development need. So it's a feedback that you've got. Oh, I have this, so I can further improve that. Okay. Then if you move upstairs, there is a development need at both the axes. Here, if you see, there is something that is bad news and surprising. These are blind spots. So you get some negative feedbacks. Oh, these are some gaps in competencies. Oh, it's surprising. I didn't know that this is what I am lacking. So these are areas where you could develop. And the others is, you know, also, but you get that reinforcement, endorsement from others. I also know this is my limitation. I don't know, but others are also feeling same. So all the more I need to develop. I hope you just got it. This is what I just wanted to take you all through as far as 360 degrees is concerned. So if you look at this, the feedback dimensions, this is how a 360-degree feedback dimension happens. Yeah. So you get from all sides, from your superiors, self, peer, subordinates. It's on not just like something whether you like someone good or bad, but these are constructed around certain specific competencies where the person know that I will get the feedback and the others have to give feedback on these particular competencies. So these are fundamentally leadership competencies. Okay. So, and also these are as far as leadership. Now, if you see functional, that is technical, it is only between you and your team leader, because he is the best person. He's your mentor. He's your team leader who knows your job, what you're doing. So he can give you a feedback on, yes, whether you're doing it right or you're doing different, or this is what you need to improve on your technical competence. So those are functional competencies. Okay. So this is just an outcome of it. I've just constructed it in my name. So it's an assessment analysis. The outcome of that 360 feedback, how does it look? If you look at a spider diagram, what is here? Yeah, so this chart shows how are you placed at the scale from 0 to 4 in terms of different competencies. I think the figure itself is self-explanatory, and this is typically for a leadership function. Yeah, where in terms of teamwork, communication, each color code is for different attribute, leadership competency. Okay, so this shows. So this is the outcome. This shows which are the areas where you need to develop. So it's very figurative, and you can get it at a glance. Okay, now we come into the assessment center aspect with respect to leadership, what it is. Let's understand these. Some of you or most of you would know what's an assessment center, but all the same, let's refresh it, or for those who it is new, let's understand. In this stage, facilitators would conduct. Now, the people who conduct, as like for any program, you have facilitators. Here, there are designated facilitators. HR happens to be one of it, because HR is the central part of it, which facilitates the whole process. Okay, but people from other domains also, once they get qualified. In my organization, earlier there was internal qualification. We used to go undergo training program to get qualified as an internal assessor as well. So there are different levels, and with experience you go up, like, just like a Six Sigma, you go from a yellow, brown belt, black belt, and all that. So we had such gradations within of assessment center when you are going through. But preliminary, you have almost 3 days training program to qualify you as an internal assessor, because there are a lot of practical things that you need to do when you actually have to do it. Okay, so it's important. So in this stage, the facilitators would conduct the assessment center, the assessments through assessment center. It is very, I'm just reading it. There isn't much to explain, but just to put it through. Okay, so the list of participants will be prepared in advance to decide on the ADC schedule. Then each development center will take around 12. When I'm saying 12, The slightly you need 8 to 12 people, because when you have group exercises, it makes meaning when there is a group. Too small, that doesn't make sense in all the year. Sometimes you may have 3 or 4, but ideally it should have at least 10, 12 people, participants who need to undergo an assessment center. And you need to have at least minimum of 3 assessors. Why 3 assessors? Each assessor will look into a maximum of 2 or 3 candidates. You cannot look at all, okay? Because your observation span goes beyond that. It will not suffice. So it will be a 2-day session normally. Now I'm just familiarizing you with the assessment center. Maybe you know about it. So it's a 2-day session where you will have a series of simulated exercises and session. Finally would end with a critical feedback. When you say critical feedback, it's not a negative feedback. It's a feedback with the objective of bringing in improvement or a change. So it's an objective driven feedback. It's a constructive feedback to every individual at the end of the second day. So the whole process is of normally 2 days. Okay. So the whole preparation and assessment will be anchored by a coordinator. Mostly the coordinator is the HR person who takes care, maybe a learning development person or a head or someone from the facilitating team. So the arrangement depends on so many aspects, like right from the venue. Now it's very important here to know that you need to draw out the candidates. We'll see how they come in also. The candidates have to be away from their workplace undisturbed. It's very important when they are. There are certain ground rules and explanations, as even in the beginning of this session, it was said, put off your microphone, put off your mobile, all these things. So similarly, there are certain ground rules which are important. Why? Because the candidate needs to be totally focused and be in here and now. He cannot be doing this and his regular work. He has to be cut away. It's a 2 days investment for his what you call development and growth, for knowing his gaps and improving his competencies. So there are certain very strict rules that is kept. So person is away. Normally it is either outside or a designated place cut off from his regular work. So these are some things that are very important when you conduct an assessment center. You cannot have it this and that like that. So that's what it is. So one needs to totally prepare, fine tune everything, the venue and other facilities which will be carried out. We will try and answer the questions later on. I'm just going with the flow. We can take it later on, okay? Any clarifications that are required. So at the end of the each 2-day session, one would go with clarity on their strengths. The outcome is important. It is not that 2 दिन का assessment center हुआ, end में क्या हुआ कुछ समझ में नहीं आया, कुछ तो किया नहीं. End of the day, the candidate has to go with some clarity as to this is the gap, this is the competency, this is the gap. He needs to feel justified, not victimized, not vindicated, but that he's got an opportunity to demonstrate, show himself, perform, and it has revealed these gaps, which is constructive. And then finally, he goes out with a development plan, which will be supported further by his team leader. Okay, that is why with respect to the identified managerial competencies, it has to be supported, because development then happens later on a time frame. So if the client, when I say client, it means the candidate desires to incorporate functional assessment techniques. Now, certain organizations also incorporate in the assessment center technical competencies also. As we said, technical competencies are important. So there are two, normally it is done separate, technical assessment and the leadership or the soft behavioral assessments. But sometimes it depends on the client. When I say client, when we go as an assessor to an organization, it depends on the organization to take a call. They can either include technical aspects also as a part of the ADC. Okay, it all depends upon the time availability and whether it can be accommodated. You cannot have anything and everything. There has to be a structure, number, everything is predefined if you have to keep it effective. Okay, so these are some things. Now let's understand the purpose of the assessment. It's very important for us to understand. The important thing is to make a judgment And this judgment is not out of your own mind, okay? When you're talking about assessment, it's not out of my own perception or my own feelings or thoughts. It's something to do with actual what is seen, referred, and connected to. So it is about making judgment, identifying the strength and weaknesses, the good and bad, the right and wrong in some cases. So what is the right behavior? What is the desired behavior, or what is the gap like that? Okay. And it is more than simply giving marks or grades. As yesterday we said, it's not pass fail. Although you will have a measurement criteria, but the way the feedback is given, the way it is put across, is not to mean something to say that you have failed assessment, but it shows that in certain areas you need to improve. It is like competent and not yet competent, or you are here, but you need to move here. So it shows a progressive path forward, not a negative cut. Okay, so it's very important. Uh, So some principles, let's understand here fastly. Now, why I'm taking you through these details, it is important because I, what you call, feel that each one of us, when we are learning something, we should go with a good understanding of it. Of course, there is a time paucity, but I'm trying to share from what my experience, what I could put together and put it across to y'all, that before jumping into it, you need to know what is it all about. So some principles of these assessment, some basic criterias, these are there. Now, this again, as I said, it's all a skill building. It doesn't happen overnight. It has to be evolved. There is a process, which is what we are just going through. So the first of all, it has to be something that is valid and relevant. You can't test something that is not relevant
हाँ
with
हाँ
respect to that person.
हाँ
Can I request you to mute, please?
आगे क्या मालूम
Can you please mute yourself? Can I request you all to mute,
Yeah,
please?
yeah. Excuse me, Mr. Salim. Please mute yourself. Salim, sir.
yes 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 sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. So assessment should be valid. So validity, what does it validity means? It has to be relevant. It has to be with respect to the current needs and situations. Because that has to be then applied. Okay, it is not something, oh ye to kiya lekin iska koi maina hi nahi. It doesn't connect with my work or it doesn't mean anything. So it has to be valid. So where the participants attain the intended learning outcomes. So whatever learning outcomes has to be put to practice, put to use. Second, it should be reliable and consistent. It is not a one-off thing, and that is why this is what you call derived and well thought of process. It is not that you pick any tools or any instruments and anything and then just do it. It's not by convenience. It is need based. It is specific with respect to the role, to the job that is required. Let me emphasize, it is a very scientific process, and that only will spell the success of it. So there is a need for assessment to be reliable, and this requires clear, consistent process of aligning, scoring, moderation, and ranking. These stages we will see later on. Okay. Then information about the assessment should be very, very clear, precise, transparent, ambiguous nahi hona chahiye. So it has to be clear and accurate, whatever you have communicated, not go roundabout. You should tell specifically this is, because then only one can really understand and take it. Otherwise, you will still feel, oh, it's not a, as they call, statement of, what do you call, just if you say something like you're not good or this is not correct, it doesn't mean anything. What is not good and what is not good? You have to tell exactly this behavior or this particular thing is what is not right and this is what is expected. So once you know that, then you know which direction you have to go. नहीं तो then you are left at a loss. अरे इसने अच्छा तो नहीं बोला, but लेकिन क्या करना क्या है? So that's what happens. So it's very important for you to know. So clear, accurate, and again, timely information. Now, this is very important, the feedback. That is why it's a 2-day process, where the second day it has to close with the feedback. And very, I mean, if possible, or definitely with a development plan. Okay, so then that sets about path forward for that individual. So he goes with a good feeling, with a feeling of value addition. So these are something very important aspects. These are the softer aspects, but very, very critical with respect to assessment center. So this is what it is. So let's talk about some more principles. It should be inclusive and equitable. What it means is as far as possible without compromising on the organization's benchmarked or set standards. As I said, there are some standards of the organization. It has to be in line with that. It cannot be in tangent, or it cannot go contrary. Okay. So certain basic things are there. So those things have to be in place. You cannot compromise. The other thing, it should directly relate to the aims of the program and the learning outcomes. So this is a generalistic assessment center. It is done with a specific purpose for development, for identifying gaps so that that person can progress, for moving up, for considering him for promotion, whatever it is. So all these things, right? So it's very important that it is considered in that. So it has to directly relate to the objective of the whole aspect of why you're conducting that assessment center. Okay. So some principles here, let us see the amount of assessment. Now, these are some practical things that I'm talking. Maybe you might feel it, oh, what's so about? But let me tell you, in my experience, I've seen where we have taken too much that we cannot handle, or we have considered maybe more tools, or we have considered less or more candidates so that justice could not. I'm telling you, these are the learning things that one goes through. So that is why some specifics have been arrived at. So the amount of assessment work should be manageable because there is a time constraint. See, these are not done at some holiday time. These are done parallel to your work. Okay. So there are people drawn from their work, including the candidates or the people who undergo, as well as the assessors, as well as the facilitators. They are not from out of the world. Yes, you may hire experts from outside. Some organizations, they don't have internal capability, so they get experts or consultants from outside, but it costs money. But still there are internal people involved. So there is something that you know need to manage between both. There is a balance. ये बहुत important चीज है समझना. Many a times we go overboard or under a and then land up into not it being effective. So scheduling of assessment exercises and the amount of quantitative, qualitative assessment required, how much, how many students, how many candidates, how many attributes or competencies to be assessed, the number of tools to be administered, all these things needs to be practically considered, because if you may go enthusiastically, but you will find the candidate or the person is not able to take it on. He will be so overwhelmed that he will get lost or his full potential cannot come out. तो वो पूरा दब जाएगा. So this is very important to understand, to balance it. Okay. And then formative and summative assessment should be part of it. When you say formative and summative, these are very important. Like even in education, you have formative and summative. Okay. So this is somewhere to give him that feedback of an individual and group, because the assessors, which we will see, it's a group consensus that is coming upon finally. So it's whole in a holistic, supportive manner that it takes place. Some more principles. We'll go quickly on this. Yeah. There is timely feedback that promotes learning and facilitates improvement, and it should be an integral part of the assessment. I'm just re-emphasizing the whole thing that there has to be a timely feedback. In some of my earlier experiences, we have seen that we conducted assessment center, feedback दिया ही नहीं, assessment center करके वो चला गया, तब तक उसका पूरा excitement गया, and he is going with a question mark कि क्या है outcome, क्या result क्या है. It is like you giving your exam and waiting for the results, and it gets delayed, and by the time the whole charm, the whole relevance is lost. So it is important only when then and there is a closure, or important, and the closure is the feedback becoming a part of the process. You need to give that feedback because everyone is curious. He is interested to know the outcome, because that will give him a path forward for development or growth. So it's important. So my dear participants, ladies, gentlemen, students, we need to understand this aspect. These are small but very important and sensitive. Okay. And then assessor training program. Now this is very important, which I was sharing with it. There are two ways of going about it. As I said, organizations can get people from outside. That's the most easy way, but the costly way. But then क्या होता है कि इसमें the people from outside, if they come, they don't know about your organization. So there is a possibility that they may not be able to integrate with the candidates. Sometimes you being part of the organization will know about the organizational values, basics, and everything. You will be able to make it more relevant. But then, yes, there are experts who first study and then come. That is also okay. Otherwise, if it is big organizations, now do it internally, although they call few from others, but there are a lot of assessors who are from the organization. They are drawn based on their own interest because there are many who volunteer. There are incentives given for people who volunteer to become as assessors. There are training programs, certificates, awards, all that given to people who volunteer to become. So then the training program has to become a part of the assessment program because you need qualified assessors. There is an internal qualification. So a total 2 to 3 days of session followed by practice sessions where you work under a trained assessor as an underdog. These are the ways it happens. Okay, you can't become overnight. So maybe there is an expert, then you work with him, you shadow. It's called shadow. Okay, so this is how it is done. I think I'm giving you the small intricacies, but these are important when we are learning, understanding assessment center in total, right? So now we come to the process. This is the backdrop. This is important for us to know when we start off. Now, the process in brief, assessments are done using several tools like simulation exercises, which includes case studies. We'll see what it means. Role plays, in-basket exercise, competency-based interviews, presentation. Now, these are all exercises or tools or instruments that are administered to a candidate individually or in a group. And what happens is during this, when he undergoes this, an observer, which we will see later, he observes that candidate for specific behavioral traits, where he has a reference document where he will observe. We will see what and how it has to be done. He observes that candidates in his behavior and he connects and corresponds to the competencies. So we will see how it goes. Okay. So now these assessments are carried out whom, as we said, by trained observers who are skilled, who observe as I have just told you about it. Yeah. And they are all on the predefined criteria. So this turn is important, becomes the input for the whole assessment. The predefined criteria is competency framework. Now, competency framework means a set of competencies, their intensity levels, their levels which are there. So these competencies are defined. These are then picked up and what you call ascertained to specific roles, levels, positions, grades everywhere. So these are competencies which are again evolved not out of some thoughts and process, not by HR. Let me tell you, as yesterday we saw, HR doesn't do it. HR facilitates, is part of the process, but every functional head, the management, the top management, the senior management, personnel, the managerial people involved can first be practical, relevant as to what are the competencies required for that particular role, job, okay, for that person to become competent, to enhance, to do better, right? So that's what it is. And these are used again to observe star performers. As we said, when you have, there are star performers who are there in every category. How do they get nominated? That is when they demonstrate this competency or they excel in those competencies. Okay. So that is how it starts off. We come to tests and instruments for each level, as I said, consisting of which are, so there are different bands. That means within a band, you can apply a same set of tests or tools and the same competency levels. So there are different bands, and what we call it as band in the organization where I have worked is within that, if you move up, Like for example, in the example it is given executive. So if you say from executive to senior executive to maybe assistant manager, it is one band. So when I say one band, what it means is within that, your role or work doesn't significantly change. You do same thing, but you get upgraded. There is a grade change. For that, you go through a certain thing. So this all you can classify as one band. But when you go from an assistant manager or deputy manager to a manager, it goes to another band. So here the whole skill set and the competency is different, the levels or competencies. What I mean to say, suppose even if you say negotiating skills for a purchase person, a person at this level also has negotiating skills, a person at this level, but the intensity or the canvas, the definition changes to what level this person will do negotiation and what depth that person will do. Because the interaction level, the outcome level changes, the complexity changes. So that's what I wanted to explain. So that's how they are banded together for different bands, and we call it as a turn. When person goes from say deputy manager to manager, or from manager to general manager to COO, then there is a whole change in the skill set, because this whole, what you call the function, the whole domain changes. So that is why different skill sets, different competencies, or even if the competency statement is same, the term, but the definition changes because the level changes. We will see those levels also. Okay. So you need to identify, develop multiple tools, instruments, inventory to assess individuals. Different level of competencies as demonstrated, right? And the typical development center I have mentioned here, all these tests or instruments are there. We'll see one by one, few of them. Group discussion, role plays, competency-based presentations and all that, okay? Now, some methods of assessment center. An assessment center evaluates what? An employee's competencies, the knowledge, skill, and attitude using predefined rater scales. Now, there are rating scales which I will share with you, and exercises to evaluate each competency applicable for an employee. Okay. So an assessment center can be defined by a variety of testing techniques. So one assessment center will have a different testing techniques designed to allow the participant to demonstrate under standard conditions the competency, that is the skill and ability which is required for his or her job to be successful, or for him or her to grow. Okay. So these assessment centers utilize variety of assessment simulations. Simulations are nothing but created, job-like, similar job-like situations or normal, what you call, what you do in your particular role, those are created, okay, so that they can be near practical things in a controlled conditions. So it uses various assessment simulations which we have seen, right? What happens here again, features, we'll go through this quickly. Yeah, participants participate in a series of exercises that simulate on the job situation like these things. So there are something like on the job things that can be brought into the room by giving certain exercises near. Now these are, mind you, non-technical at this aspect what you're talking. Technical can be given, but then you need to have certain technical criteria or technical situations to be created. This is normally for leadership assessment, behavioral skills. Now, trained assessors observe carefully, observe, they document the behavior displayed by the participant. Each assessor observes each participant at least once. Now, this is some important thing. This is the actual process of assessment center. The trained assessors observe, okay? And when you say observe, they observe the individual totally. That means the way he is talking, his body language, how he conducts, how he behaves, and also the outcome. Okay. So in totality, he observes. And when he observes, he documents. Now, let me tell you this documentation. I will show you the format. It's a very, very critical thing. It is not that he interprets and puts. It is not his assessment or something. He captures it verbatim as observed. That he shouted, he did like this, this is the statement. He can even put down in actual terms, this is what the candidate said, because that infers something with respect to his competency. Are you getting it? So it's very important. This observation skill is important. It is not you observe and then put your own thought. It is capturing as the candidate has demonstrated. So ये बहुत important है. और हर एक assessor at least एक candidate को observe करता है. And then he writes down his own evaluation, documenting the behavior. Okay. And after that, what happens is they integrate the data through consensus. That means here what happens is the candidate is given full freedom and justice to demonstrate. What happens? Let me tell you, for example, say a role play. We will see what a role play is. Suppose a candidate is not so extrovert, he in a role or in a role play he could play, but in a group discussion where along with others he is not able to open up much. But in a role play on a one-to-one, he's able to show a particular competency. Say he's able to show say customer focus or customer centricity or customer what you call satisfaction aspect, or maybe negotiating, or maybe a team this. If he is able to pull it out in one of the instruments, the others nahi hai, so there is a balancing act that is done, because one observer has observed him. I will appreciate you all, please listen to this carefully. One observer has observed him in one of the test instruments, the other observer is another thing. So he would have rated him low in a particular competency. He would have rated him better, higher, because he has demonstrated that competency. There is a process which is very important called integration, where different assessors sit together and they put forth what they have observed with respect to that competency. Please listen this carefully. It's important. And that is the way finally a judgment or an evaluation is done with respect to the individual and the competency. So benefit is given for that candidate to show in different exercises. So एक में नहीं गया करके पूरा fail नहीं है. So that could be given as a feedback that yes, in a group you could not perform, so you need to look into that. Okay, whereas individually you're a good performer in a particular competency. So that's how these are things. So there is a make and balance about the whole thing, and there is justice done. And there are important things in this that is taken care. Why multiple assessors and multiple questions? Because to remove all ambiguity, biases. Finally, remember, even assessors are individuals. They can also carry some uh, backgrounds. But we need to, however you are very much aware or professional still, but to eliminate the whole objective, let me tell you, of this assessment center is the candidate. It's for the candidate, for the candidate, for the candidate. It is no other objective. So the benefit has to go to that person, that he gets a chance to express himself, to bring out that competency. So ये बहुत important point है. Okay, and that's the integration that's done and a consensus discussion. And then the outcome based on where he stands or why. And again, when the feedback is given to the candidate, it is not just a generalistic. He has to be told this is what was observed and this is what was expected. So this is the gap where he appreciates, acknowledges, and aligns with his. Oh, yeah, I said that. Oh, this is what it is. Okay. So I take it. This is the gap. So then how do you want to go about improving that competency? So this is the way you go about it. So he receives an objective performance information from one of the assessors or maybe an administrator. It could be also along with his team leader. Okay, so that he feels connected. So the team leader also knows, because the further hand holding has to be done by the team leader. Okay, because assessment center खत्म हो जाएगा तो रात गई वाला बात नहीं है. It is finally to be taken forward of implementing the development plan that is evolved. I hope you're getting this point. Okay. So let's go to this important aspect also, something you should know, how assessors are also taken. Okay. It is not just like that, someone, okay, मुझे अच्छा लगा कि मैं आ जाऊँ या किसी को, even if it is external, it needs to be validated. So whether they have undergone some course, whether they fall in the non-bias. Now this is very important, especially when you take someone from within the organization. Care is taken that जो assessor जिस कैंडिडेट को देखता है, he is not directly or indirectly connected with that. He not does not happen to be someone who interacts with him on a day-to-day basis or functionally. Why? Because he can create biases or preconceived notions. Even he could feel that अरे ये तो मेरे बारे में जानता है, इसके साथ मैंने कभी आर्ग्यू किया था, तो ये तो ऐसा करेगा, ये सोचेगा. The whole thing is lost. That's why there is a neutral approach, so cross-functional. So normally, say for example, agar wo candidate is from, say, accounts department, the person could be from sales, okay, or from purchase. Now, if he is from sales, then he could be from accounts, jahan pe there is a very remote chance of he interacting functionally. It's only to remove all biases and keep both of them at neutral level. It's very important. Okay, so that's what is mentioned there. So, and again, they are based on their expertise to suit a particular grade, because it depends. When you're at a higher grade, you're able to observe, you're observing skills. It's again, let me tell you, this is a skill which needs to be developed. Even to become an assessor, it's a skill development. Okay, so it could be, as we said, external or internal. Now, just to summarize again, the benefits, we have already talked about it. Yeah, I don't think we need to dwell on that. We have seen enough. The benefits, it's very important for the organization to make progress, for the individual to make progress, know the gap, for the leadership pipeline. Many organizations don't have a well-defined or well-laid out leadership pipeline. एक आदमी छोड़ के गया तो gap पड़ जाता है. So how the second line is trained, developed, these are so many aspects that are taken care. For a new recruit till he retires, the whole growth is what you call maneuvered or taken through these assessment and development centers. Now, very importantly, let's see some effective aspects. What makes an ADC effective? Role analysis. Now, these are the back work that we have already talked about out of the competency framework. Role analysis, the role has to be very specific, well defined. The effective role analysis, we are not going to detail of this, because that has to be properly connected with the related exercises that is being administered. Okay, and the assessment matrix has to be balanced, so that har ek competency, at least you need to assess in 2 or 3 aspects. We will see a matrix where you will appreciate that. Okay, and then of course well-trained assessors are required to do justice to the whole process. Okay, these are some do's and don'ts for the assessors. Once having gone through, then I'll show you some practical this. Do's and don'ts, these are very important. Just you can go through fast. There isn't much explanation required. Yeah. Use relevant techniques, then record the assessment results. You have to provide detailed feedback, then focus on the outcome. Okay, the outcome has to be very important. So the outcome is very important. Are you able to bring out that gaps, and are you able to put it forth to the candidate as an improvement area? Then again, do's and don'ts, it is an individualized assessment. There is no comparison, no joint. It is for that individual. Okay, so these are very important. While giving a feedback, we have to be very careful. No comparison कि वो ऐसा है कि ये ऐसा है. उसने ऐसे किया, तुमने ऐसे किया. No way. And these are all on standards which are set and met. Okay. And very importantly, the whole assessment center and the feedback has to be carried out in a very, very cordial manner. There has to be, it's not intimidative all to tell him कि वो चोर है, मैं police हूँ. So he should feel threatened. It should be very gentle, supportive, friendly. That's why we call it developmental. It's more fostering. The whole objective is for growth and development, not for pass fail. Okay. Although it is a way of telling yes, there are areas of improvement. So it's very important. Some don'ts. This is also very important. Allow the participant to really go through the whole thing. We should not jump to any conclusions. Yeah. So you should not assess the participation in some typical perspective one. Look at the overall objective, overall aspect of it. Okay, not to interrupt and then be insensitive or dismissive. You should not be, because in many cases you should see when you are doing the integration how you should be. Okay, you should allow others' opinions to also come in. Now, this is the approach, just in a nutshell, if you have to see it. Yes, the basic starting point is design instrument for the process. So this is the pre-stage where it comes out of the competency matrix and the framework that is there. Then it is evolved that for this level, these are the competencies for this stage, this job profile and this level. Okay, so these are to be assessed. So you design instruments in related. Now again, designing instruments is itself a different ball game. We are not going into that because instrument development is a skill by itself. Because through that instrument or through each of this, maybe role play, maybe case study, maybe group discussion, these competencies are integrated in that, so that when a candidate goes through that, these competencies can be seen. The candidate is getting an opportunity to show those competencies. So that is the beauty of those instruments. Okay, so that's how it is. Then conduct it, consolidation, feedback, and then gap analysis. This is just to put it in that format. So this is again just a flow that I'm trying to show you so that it's very clear in our mind, the various stages. The candidate goes through the various exercises and instruments. Then observers, assessors, they observe and document and put down as observed, okay, verbatim. And then they evaluate, write reports, and then there is an integration that happens along with the co-assessors, so that the candidate is seen in different dimensions and different tests, and the full credit value is given, justice is done, and then finally feedback is given to the candidate. Okay, now we'll see each of the cases now. Yeah, quickly. So case analysis and presentation. If you see case analysis, what is this case analysis? A business case study is given where a situation is given. Okay, normally these are summaries or synthesis of real life cases based upon data and research. Now these are again derived out of some practical things only. Some names and figures could be fabricated, but it typically gives you the essence of the whole real case. So it provides an insight into how a person looks at a particular scenario that is mentioned there. So when he goes through that case, he's supposed to read it, understand it, analyze it, and derive certain interpretations. That is the outcome that is in terms of certain competencies. Okay, so what is seen here now, it is also giving an opportunity to think individually. So it's an individual exercise, this case analysis. So you think through key issues involved in various strategies, what you could apply, pros and cons, what are the options. So the questions are given after the case, where he has to read the case and then understand, analyze the case, and it could give out to certain outcomes where he has to give his own proposals. So which will call for observation of certain competencies, like if you could see here, strategic thinking. If it's a business case and it was asked how he would make a plan for the organization, a growth plan, or maybe how he'll increase the profit, or what he will do in that, or a situation is there, how he will tackle that situation. So all these you see here, you could see 3-4 things: strategic thinking, analytical skill. These are typical competencies that could be seen in a case analysis and presentation. That means he goes through the case and then he presents the case. It could be a presentation also. A business scenario is given, and then he makes a presentation and presents to the assessor. And the assessor observes the candidate for these competencies, which is well known for the candidate. So it is maybe analytical skills, planning ability, decision making, communication, how he is able to convince or communicate. Now this is typically with respect to this tool. Okay, so when this tool is administered, these are the competencies that could be observed, and the observer actually just captures what, based on the questions or based on these competencies, what is the candidate demonstrating. Okay, then We talk about competency-based interview. Now, these are again one-to-one individual exercise, structured interview. Why you call it structured? Because again, it's a one-to-one where the candidate, what you call is given an opportunity to explore or go into details, maybe his work experience, his work, what is he doing, about for him to tell about his work, what he thinks he has done, what changes he has done, what new improvements he has done, how he has solved problems, whatever. So these are all again a quality interview that is done where certain things can be brought out based on again the questions that is asked by the assessor. So very important the assessor to know what type of questions. So these are open-ended questions which will prompt and provoke the candidate to open up and tell more about what he has done. Okay, so here there are quantitative and qualitative information that is coming out of the participant. So by that one could know whether he has applied his mind somewhere, has he applied reasoning, how has he handled certain situations, what were his challenges, what he could overcome, what were his constraints. So this will bring out various, again, competencies out of that interview. This is again a very engaging session. So it brings out aspects like people orientation, team, analytical ability, decision making, problem solving, achievement orientation or result orientation, all these things. Okay. Now you come to in-basket analysis. Now in-basket again is a very complex, but it is also a very useful tool. This is normally given to a higher management level, not to the lower levels, supervisory or at lower levels, because it's more demanding. There is a lot of pressure and time constraint. Now, what is it is you are given a situation, a full thing, as the term thinks in basket. You always have an in basket and out basket. So in basket is the to do things. So there are so many things put into that as to various things that a candidate in that position would be expected to do, like taking decisions, taking actions, okay, taking strategic decisions. So all this will call out what within a constraint of time, there are too many things given. So easy able to prioritize it, easy able to sort it out, easy able to sort it out as to which is important, less important, or can be delegated. So these are all leadership qualities. Now, if you see here, the competencies that are looked at in an in basket, where you see here, you can read it also, like emails, telephone calls, reports, memos, all these things are put in there. Now, how are you going to manage? Are you going to go everything? Then you're out of time. So you need to prioritize, delegate, plan, organize. So you see all these competencies could be observed by the way he approaches and demonstrate his action plan. So can he prioritize problem analysis, planning and organizing, delegating? So that's the in-basket exercise. Role play is another engaging and interesting thing, which I think you would have involved at your different levels. It's very, very one-to-one, where the assessor plays one part of the role and the candidate plays another part of the role. Normally, this is more to do with a boss and a subordinate, or a customer and a client, something like that, because where a lot of things like interpersonal skills, customer focus, negotiation skills, and then listening skills. So all these things are brought forth. Okay. So if you see here, it's all about relationship building, conflict resolution. So some tough situations are created, and that is given as a topic to the situation for the candidate to play a role, where the observer challenges the candidate is put in a tight situation. How is he able to manage it? Is he able to manage the, maybe if it is a irate customer, or it is a unhappy subordinate or a team member, how is he able to really manage it? So this role play becomes a very practical useful, because day in day out in the real scenario also you deal with these customer unhappiness, customer interactions with subordinates, with vendors, all these things happen with stakeholders. So you get all that listening, problem solving, conflict resolution. Now these are things that are observed. How does he come across or she come across? Okay. In written test, this is a specific thing that is administered also as a part of assessment center, And why is it done? Yes, this also brings forth your analytical thought process, the way whether you have knowledge, clarity, analytical skills, where you can structure, because it's important. In managerial supervisor situations, you need to present yourself um, uh, in a written manner also. You have to write memos, notes, yeah, emails, and you have to give. Are you really putting properly in a structured manner? Are you able to bring clarity to your thoughts? So certain situation is given and then you're asked to write down. Okay, and this also part becomes analytical tests also. Certain analytical tools are given where also you go through various multiple choice questions where you could attempt, that will bring out your analytical skills. Now these are typically the language where you bring clarity, structure or precisions. Okay, then psychometric test, this is basically to do with PQ, psychological. So how do you deal with situations basically? Now this is well said. You get these tests at a cost, okay, to administer. You don't have to break your head because each questions are related to certain competencies. So when you answer the questions and all, and when you submit it, the whole thing gets again collated with respect to different competencies and gives the outcome as to that person's uh, various competencies that are looked. It could be teamwork, it could be the emotional aspect, it could be leadership, it could be problem solving, it could be various things. Okay, so these are psychometric tests basically in terms of ability and aptitude. Then there are also verbal reasoning tests. Then, as I said, analytical reasoning. All these depends. Again, these are available. All the tests need not be administered. These are picked and selected based on the need. Whether it is required, again, within the framework with respect to whether it is relevant or the time is available or whether it will bring out certain things. Just for the sake, dena hai karke nahi dena hai. Okay. And here again, there are different levels also. Business simulation, this again is something that is done at a higher level. It's a business game. This is very interesting and engaging, but this involves a lot of uh, preparation, where again a business scenario is given. It could be a market where sales is going down, or you're given some money how to do budgeting. Then how you're able to, how are you going to invest? How are you going to scenario? There are some external factors coming in. Keep cost बढ़ गया या फिर competition आ गया तो तुम कैसे करोगे? What you will do? All these things. So these are business scenarios. So it is given, right? And in this also what happens is business simulation, then it is given to a group, and then automatically the group decides someone to be leader. They can ascertain functions ki bhai tum finance dekho because you have finance here, tum accounts dekho. I will be like the leader. Someone will take care of some HR aspect. So everything is involved there. So it talks as a business person, because that's what happens in a real life also. You have to be part and synergize in the business process. So how does it happen in a business simulation? Such scenarios are given, these games, and in that, then the observer observes how they manage the situations, how they involve, how do they connect. So here again, strategic planning, teamwork, leadership, decision making under pressure. Now this is very significant because there are a lot of stimulus that is given. Okay, कि ये कम हो गया, वो बढ़ गया, loss हो गया, या इतना rejection हो गया. All these things. I hope you could appreciate. I can't go much into details, but I'm giving a framework of what this is actually. So this is what, and then another important one more thing what was there is group discussion. This is again a group exercise where a topic or a subject is given, or even a matter is given, again a business scenario where it's given to a group who are undergoing the assessment. So individually what they do is study it, make their own points, and then they discuss it as a group where they put forth their points. Now here it is very important because group dynamics comes into play. Here again, it is not a structured thing. Automatically, some leader, one takes a lead. How do they, it's like the initial, there is a confusion, then how the forming, norming happens in a group thing is very important, this group dynamics, because many a times each one puts his own point and drags his own point. In the process, the main objective is lost. जब वो मुद्दा देता है तो उसमें objective होता है कि as a group you have to arrive at a consensus or as a decision. Now each one will conflict and remain. So are you able to change your stand? Are you understanding others? Are you allowing others? Are you encouraging others? These are all some things which is in group dynamics. That is a group discussion, which is a whole ball game by itself. So it brings out a lot of competencies like leadership, decision making, teamwork. Okay, all these things come out of the group discussion. It's a very important tool again used to know how people behave in a group, because it's important, because all that in business, in a corporate, you have meetings which is cross functional in a group. Then we come to an important aspect, that is what we call it as evaluation sheet. Now, having done that, observed, there is an evaluation sheet. Now, evaluation sheet contains what are the following. It contains the name of the instrument, whether it is role play or whether it is group discussion or whether it is case study. Then the designation level for which, that means it is for the manager level, it is the sales manager, or which level it is being seen. Then the participant's name and number, then observer's name. Now, this is a typical evaluation sheet, which I'll show you later on. I'll just show you all these. But now we are just understanding the whole thing. Then the title of the competency, which competency is being measured, and the indicators. I will show you in the format. This competency, and these are the observable indicators. So what you need to know, what you have observed, it aligns in which category, and hence you will say below, middle, or have demonstrated it. Okay, minimum. So different scales are there. From it could be 1 to 3, or not demonstrated, minimum, or demonstrated exceedingly. So these are different levels how you can categorize it. Different formats are there. So indicators and rating columns. So these are standard formats that are there that is being given. Then you have overall rating for all that. Then finally you give a rating. Okay, it's a numerical rating that is given, which is only indicative. Again, it is doesn't qualify pass fail. It is an indicative, so that based on that you can give a feedback. Okay, and then comments by the assessor. Basically, some comments that based on this is the feedback that is to be given to the candidate. Okay, this is the gap. This is the areas of improvement. This is where he can focus upon. So it's a proposal that is being made. Okay. Then we have seen the assessment techniques. First is observe, second is record, third is classify, and fourth is documenting. So we keep this first and foremost. It starts with observation. The right observation will help you to do the right recording. The right recording will help you to classify it properly, and if you classify and finally you can extract the behavioral evidence, you can give the feedback properly. I hope you get that sequence. Again, as I tell you, it is one thing to know it, but it is a skill to be developed. Okay, and then finally the feedback that is to be given. Yeah. So certain things, observation criteria, again, as I said, the tests are so designed and sequenced that each competency would be assessed by at least 2 tests minimum. This is again what I said. These are bases which we said, so that the candidate gets at least minimum 2 times to demonstrate a particular competency. So that एक में कुछ कम हुआ या नहीं कर पाया तो दूसरा बैकअप रहता है, so that it is not lost. ओ मैं ये कर नहीं पाया, so ये competency गया, ऐसा नहीं है. He still has, maybe in this scenario he couldn't do, but another scenario he could do. So the whole idea is to give full justice, full opportunity for the candidate to really bring out his competency. Okay, so that is why these criteria are there, right? I'll show you those cue sheets. These are called as cue sheets. How to prepare the cue sheets, right? Now these are something which we have already seen. Multiple techniques, including exercises, multiple observations to remove ambiguity or biases or to miss out on any aspect. These are the things that are there. So assessors' behavioral observations, they are classified into meaningful and relevant categories. That's what it is done. Okay. Now these are some features which we have already talked about. Finally, we come to recording. So recording is they record properly the behavioral thing. It is captured as observed, and then it is correlated to certain behavioral categories, and then it is interpreted, and then a final rating is given, and then integration is done so that there is a cross match so that justice is done to the candidate. Suppose if one of the assessor observes him not to show that competency, दूसरा assessor अगर देख रहा है, so you can give benefit of that and give a feedback accordingly. Okay. So then you have classify, that is classifying into the recorded behaviors into competencies. Finally, it has to dovetail into competencies. Now, finally, what you have observed, what you have recorded, what you have interpreted or categorized, it should dovetail into a competency. It's a competency that is being evaluated, not just observation. It has to be connected to the competency. Yeah. So that's the evaluation part of it. Then you have to document. So there are a few categories that are very important in documenting. That is the validity. That is, does it reflect the criteria for which you are? So जो भी तुम observe करते हैं, क्या वो competency demonstrate कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है? Authentic. Is it the assessee's work? Now this again has to be the, is it original? Especially in case of interviews, he could say, you know, हम लोगों ने ये किया. Many a times candidates say, we did this, that we you have to challenge. Tell me what you did. Because under the so-called we, it gets camouflaged. So it doesn't come out clear whether he has or she has done something. So you have to assess his work by asking cross questions as to what benefit, how did you go about it, what it is. So this will bring out those his competencies. Okay. And reliable, is it consistent with other evidences collected? So, or is it conflicting? Suppose one assessor has observed something, the other has observed which is contrary. So you need to validate whether on what basis has this observation been done and what basis this observation has been done. Maybe it is right, but we need to see it, how it is. Okay. And then bring to a consensus. And finally arrive at the competency. This is one typical evaluation sheet. Yeah. So, and then final part is feedback. Before I go to the showing you the documents, let me just show you the feedback. Feedback is very important, has to be constructive. Normally, the feedback is given in a manner, maybe in the presence of the team leader or the assessor. It has to be in a cordial atmosphere, constructive manner. Always start with the positive. Tell him what went right first. Okay. And tell him that this is what was observed, which is good. So talk about his strengths. Then encourage him for him to ask, I want to know the gaps. Then tell him about the gaps based on evidences, what is observed. Pay attention to this. It's important, this feedback. Otherwise, the whole thing can crumble down. Itna mehnat kiya, it will be a lose-lose situation. Oh, bolega, yaar, fail ho gaya main. No, it's no pass fail. Be very clear about it. So it is something that you've given him for his improvement. He should take it as something which is for him. Okay. So give it in that manner. So it is again a skill of giving feedback. It has to be constructive. Start with the positive, then encourage him, invite him to ask for his improvement areas. Tell him this is what he did, this is what to observe. So what does he feel about it? And this is what is the comment. Do you think this is a scope of increment? He himself will buy in for it. Then it becomes his story. Otherwise, it's your story. So that is very important with respect to feedback. Okay. Now, let me, before this, I will just share with you certain let me share with you some formats, yeah, which I think will help you. I'll share with you some cue sheets that are there, which are important. For example, if you see case studies, I will just show you. Is it visible? Can someone just tell me? Yeah, I'll show one or two. Is it visible? Can someone?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So if you see this, with respect to case study, one of the competencies that was seen is customer focus. Now, if you see, the competency is defined at the top. This is the typical cue sheet that you will be using, okay, which shows what is it? It's case study, the assessor, the date, and the candidate number. And this is the competency, okay, that is customer focus. Now, if you see here, the definition is given, because everything will be driven. The assessor has to be in that framework. What's customer focus? Customer focus implies desire to provide excellent service to customer and agencies. It encompasses identifying current and potential customers, understanding their needs and expectations, satisfying them by developing customized solutions, providing after-sale service, superior operational delivery includes, these are all the framework.
Sir,
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We are
yeah,
not able to see the screen.
not able to see.
You know.
Please click on that. Click on that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Sure. Are you able to see now?
1 second, sir. Yeah, now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is a typical cue sheet. I'm only showing you an example of this cue sheet, which is for case study for a particular competency. Say customer focus. First, what the cue sheet carries is the definition, because the observer needs to know what's the framework, what are all the aspects in customer focus he is going to observe. Okay. So the whole framework is given. You can just try and read that. So various aspects with respect to customer focus, like providing service, identifying current and potential customer, understanding the needs, after sale services. So now case study jab dete hain, in that there will be aspects where the candidate can bring out all these aspects. Okay. So that is observed when he presents that case outcome. And then niche agar aap dekhoge, these are all the various indicators that are given for the observer to correlate what he has observed. So if you see, there are three levels there. One is the lower level, then there is a medium level, and then there is a higher level of competency. So each of these you could see here. The first one, if you see, develops rapport with customer, scouts for potential customers proactively, sets base for customized solutions, follow-ups and response, keeps customers up to date. Now this is one level of observations which you will see. Now isme teenon mein he will see where does he fit in by his own observation what the customer is doing. So suppose he sees that his demonstration shows that he is showing in this level, the first level, then that is the minimum. Then this is the middle one, and this is the higher level. Now, if you see the third level, you can just go through it. He works on a partnership model, works to generate customer loyalty. So these are more enriching. So he demonstrates a very high level of customer focus. So that means that person is not only showing customer satisfaction, customer delivery, but he wants to see much beyond that. So agar uska jo demonstration or expression or outcome jo rahega from that case study will show that he is ensuring that he works with the customer for the customer benefit, uska development, uska loyalty. So it is a very higher level of customer focus rather than only meeting the customer requirement. Now, if you see the three, there is one level above, one level above. So, ये particular competency minimum अगर demonstrate करता है तो ये left वाला हो गया, बीच का हो गया at a middle level, and right का हो गया at a very higher level. So accordingly, you will say that his competency level in customer focus is normal or just minimum or medium or high level of customer focus. Okay, are you getting this? So if he is just doing the minimum to meet the customer requirement ki jo hai to wo normal hai, but suppose he is putting more into building relationship or works towards success of customer एक level ऊपर, but customer का future उसके साथ में partnership की बात कर रहा है, model की बात कर रहा है, proactively long term basis का बात कर रहा है, he works on the customer related to his problems and help him solve his problems. So he is going beyond the call of duty. Are you getting that? So that is how you rate him for that competency. Now, this is one. I'll show you one more. This is with respect to case study. Okay. Now, let us see with respect to customer role play. Okay. Sorry, it's the same thing that has come. 1 second. Are you able to say this? So the same thing can also be seen through another instrument, that is role play. एक केस स्टडी में कस्टमर का बेसिस दिया गया, दूसरा है कस्टमर रोल प्ले. So when you have a role play where the assessor plays the role of a customer and you as an employee, there are certain situations that are drawn out of a situation जहाँ पे customer relationship is important. So here also, if you see, this is another instrument, but same set of metrics. So यहाँ पे भी you will see the 3 categories. So the candidate gets to demonstrate 2 different situations to demonstrate his customer focus. और कौन सा लेवल में, तो हो सकता है कि केस स्टडी में वो बताया कि इतना हाई लेवल नहीं है, बट कस्टमर फोकस में he would be demonstrating at a very higher level. So those two needs to be integrated. That's what is happening in the integration, so that the justice is done to him, where he is able to just bring forth his own competency level out. Okay. I'll show you one with respect to presentation. Now, when you're talking about presentation, now suppose a case presentation is given. So there again, you'll see a format, जहाँ पे achievement. What you need to do here is exactly what you do is you have to mark here what you have seen. आप जब देखते हैं ना, इसमें you have to mark. Like for example, in achievement orientation with respect to presentation, you have seen this. So you mark what is it that you have observed. He has an ability to attack deliverable, then you tick mark here. Then if you find him in some other way that is doing this, you tick mark here. And if you find him here also somewhere, you tick mark. Otherwise, you find everything in this category, it's fine. So accordingly, Nietzsche, if you see below, what is shown below is, this is what is the observation you need to understand. There are positive instances and development opportunities. So in positive instances, you capture all those are in favor of that competency. What all you have observed, which is supporting that competency. And on the right hand side, the development, that is the gap that he did not demonstrate. So what is the behavior that did not demonstrate his that particular competency, whether it is customer focus or whatever it is. So this is the cue sheet which is there, which will help you. So you have to correlate the observation into these. Now these are typically made with respect to that competency. So this is developed, this is not readily available. इसको evolve करना पड़ता है, which is correlated with the actual job. क्या क्या उसमें देखना पड़ता है. That is why there is an involvement. It is not a ready-made thing that is available. But I am just giving you a demonstration of it. Okay. So this is what it means. I'll just show you a cue sheet now. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Just a moment. This is another sheet which is there, which you would appreciate. If you see this, these are the positive and developmental things that you would share. And there is, finally, what you do it is, yeah, finally, what you do in this case is, finally, what you do is you integrate the whole thing. What matrix you have is you have the list of competencies, and then you have the competency and the various instruments. And then in that matrix, what you finally have is what is the scores that you have. And with that scores, you will know how that candidate has performed. Whether, for example, normally it is from the scaling of 2 to 4 or 2 to 5. So 2 means it is below, 3 means it is in the median, and 4 or above 4 shows that he has demonstrated that competency very high. Accordingly, that matrix is only for the assessor. That is not shown to the candidate per se, because it could intimidate him. So that family shows which competency needs to be told to him. These are his strengths and these are the competencies where he needs to improve. So that is one matrix that is prepared, and then a feedback is given. I think within this short time, I would like to share and stop at this point. And any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So we do have some questions in the chat box. So I'll just go with the first question.
Yeah, please.
So the first question is how to integrate some of the techniques in academic world for students and junior colleagues to improve their performance at self-individual level in tune to mission of college.
On a lighter vein, first thing is to call me. I will help you do that. But going further, how to integrate in institutions is definitely you can do, but you need to integrate it to whom, basically. If you can just repeat it once again.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
How to integrate some of the techniques in academic world for students and junior colleagues to improve their performance at self-individual level in tune to mission of college.
See, for students, basically, what is the purpose of putting it to students? Finally, every student passing out of a professional institution is to, get a job. Okay. So it's finally where you get in is to get a job, where you have the campus interviews and recruitments. So here, few of the tools which you could use primarily is definitely in group discussion. You can have analytical tests. You can have certain other tests that can be integrated there. Because at the student level, you will not be really getting into that aspect, but yes, which will definitely help you to get a better job, do successfully in your interview. All that would be very useful. So your communication aspects can be seen, your interpersonal skills can be seen. So group discussions are one, and competency based interviews, certain interviews where are you able to really explain yourself. So here in competencies of communication skills, are you able to analyze certain things? So these things can definitely be incorporated. For students it can be at that level. Then at the staff level, definitely if you see performance and all that, if you're talking about that, or junior colleagues, when you talk, again, the competency mapping is important. What is really important that needs to, when you talk about performance, what is it that is really seen? So again, in a college atmosphere or an institution, if you see, what is important is again your communication skill, your interpersonal skill. See, subject matter, the you are an expert, okay, that person is an expert, so that doesn't need to be taken. You're in as a professor or as a lecturer or as a faculty because you are that expert, domain expert. But what is it is that internally, if you have to grow up, you need to have certain competencies. Now that is to be defined with the institution and with the whole framework of the institutions. But typically standard ones could be like interpersonal skill, leadership skills, because you need to grow up and take seniors. Like a junior lecturer can become a senior lecturer. You can even go into administrative roles. All these things are there. So interpersonal skills are there, communication skills are there. So these are where it could be applied with respect to, a result orientation is there. This is very important. Effectiveness is there or not. And then again, certain aspects that can be improved, because the whole mind, it's all again about how to improve the whole efficiency, the effectiveness of a person. Okay. So you can definitely apply it, but it requires some sort of a uh, understanding as to the whole college. What is the college aiming at? Again, as I said, it has to be driven from the whole philosophy or the vision, mission, and what the college is aiming at. Okay. Am I clear?
Yes, sir.
If any more, I think if you can ask something specific, I can. I mean, with respect to that. Otherwise, you can proceed.
Yeah, I would request if anyone is having any questions, can please post in the chat box. So there is another question.
Yeah. Please.
Psychomotor test is conducted before ADC.
Yeah. Further. What's
So
the
that's it.
question?
That's it.
Psychometric test. That's what you mean?
Psychomotor test. Motor.
It's a psychometric test. Now, these are done along with the assessment. It can be done separate also, because it is again an individual exercise where there are a lot of, what is psychometric test finally? These are again a set of scenarios or statements that are given, and these statements correlate to certain competencies. So these are again tools that are readily available in the market, or you can even evolve it if you have the framework for that, the expertise. These are a set of say 50, 100 statements that are there. With each of the statement correspond to demonstration of certain competencies. It could be dealing with certain situations to do with your relationship. It could be with teamwork. It could be with your customer base. So various things are there. So psychometric tests are, to say it is not 100% accurate, because finally it is based on how the individual is responding to that. So there could be few gaps in that, which could be his understanding of the question, then his own interpretation. Because yahan pe jo what is asked for is to be true to yourself. So you have to answer the way you are, and many a times the student or the candidate lands up in telling how he wants to be. So in that, the whole thing gets camouflaged. So the right outcome doesn't come. Many a times we have seen the psychometric test and the actual demonstration, there could be variation. Okay. because if it is not done authentically and realistically and genuinely, it could give a wrong, yeah, it could be due to wrong understanding, language issue, or giving the wrong response. But it is still done because it's a precursor. It also gives how you individually feel about yourself. So it is a self-reflective thing. So psychometric tests are administered as part of assessment centers. Yeah, anything else?
So there's one more question. What is the full form of TMT?
TMT is top management team. It is a management team. You can have any terminology. This is something which I have used. Any other questions? As I said, in this 3 hours, it's difficult to go into much detail. I have tried my best to cover it up. You have to contact me. Yeah. Any further question?
No.
So that's it for the day. We don't have any more questions. So I would now request Mr. Sameer Sheikh to please propose vote of thanks.
Thank you so much
Yes.
for all of your patient listening. I hope I could add some value. I so thank you so much for the opportunity and for each one of you to be part of it on this weekend. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Good
Yes,
afternoon,
sir.
everyone. I'm Sameer Sheikh from NIPM Raigad chapter, and I'm here to present vote of thanks for 2 days workshop on competency mapping needs of ours. I would like to thank Dr. Sajeev Nair and Mr. Neil Ramesh, our webinar speaker. This 2 days session is full of knowledge. It gives deep insight into the topic and all revealed interesting fact. I like the way they present the topic was really informative. I'm sure that the precious knowledge that Dr. Nair and Mr. Ramesh give us will definitely help us in our future life. I would like to thank the organizer, Dr. Vilas Rao Kadam and Dr. Anjali Kalse from Bharati Vidyapit Institute of Management Studies and Research, Navi Mumbai, Mr. Avinash Somonshi, Chairman, NIPM Raigad Chapter, Professor Kishore Sharma from Konkan Kanpit Uran College of Commerce and Arts, and Human Capital Club's all members. Also thanks to the person behind to call people together for this meeting, Professor Kuldeep Bhalerao and Dr. Parag Karulekar. And of course, all of you, all participants, thanks to all of you. All you are a great listener and keep in touch. Thanks to all. Over to Fatima.
Thank you so much, sir. I would request everyone to please switch on their cameras so that we can take a group photo, and feedback links will be posted in the chat box, and please fill it up for your certification. Everyone, please switch on your cameras. Thank you so much, everyone. Everyone, please fill the feedback form for your certificates and attendance.
Hello. We
मैडम
could not
लिंक को
get
क्लिक नहीं होता है. हेलो.
yet we could not receive the
Yeah.
feedback form.
लिंक को क्लिक नहीं होता. राजेश्वरी मैम.
Yes, sir. Just give me a minute. I'll just cross check.
Yeah.